and your children are turned into mindless vassals who now they look up to some twit instead of looking up to Thomas Jefferson or looking up to Nikola Tesla or looking up to Magellan. I mean, kids, Magellan's a lot cooler than Justin Bieber. He circumnavigated with one ship the entire planet. He was killed by wild natives before they got back to Portugal. And when they got back, there was only like 11 people alive of the 200-something crews, and the entire ship was rotting down to the waterline. That's destiny. That's will. That's striving. That's being a trailblazer, an explorer, going into space, mathematics, quantum mechanics, the secrets of the universe. It's all there. Life is fiery with its beauty. It's incredible detail. Tuning into it. They want to shut your mind. Talking about Justin Bieber. It's pure evil. They're taking your intellect, your soul, and giving you Michael Jordan and Bieber. Unlock your human potential. Defeat the globalists who want to shatter your mind. Your doorway to perception. I want to see you truly live. I want to see you truly be who you are.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We have FURU Finance with us. What's up, man?
What's going on? What's going on? Thanks for having me. It's a great intro.
Absolutely. Yeah. What do you think about the new intro, man? It was a custom job.
It was good. I hope it doesn't hurt your presence at YouTube. But
Oh no, don't worry. I have a close relationship with the deep state. We
Okay.
work things out behind the scenes. As long as I just promote blind obedience to the state, then I shouldn't have a problem moving forward.
there you go.
Which is my main thing. As much as we'd love to talk about crypto, really, I just want to moving forward promote the usage of Ozempic and just blind obedience and adherence to the party line. That's kind of my main thing. How you been, man? It's been some time.
It's been great. It's been great. Pleasure to be on your channel this time. We've done this once before, so I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think you're a friend of the show. I think we're very kind of similar in a couple ways. One of the things that kind of attracted me to you, man, in the first place was your willingness to kind of not being afraid of talking about kind of different controversial topics. And I think we've had perhaps similar paths maybe, but just on different sides. I think you were kind of very prominently talking about kind of the whole eHex, PHex thing while I was on the whole incentive token side of things. So how have things been lately with kind of your channel, the whole drama? Are things dying down, or how's that whole situation evolved for you?
It's been a great experience. It's really something I recommend to people.
Whoa.
I mean, I like to say scoreboard. That's what I say. That's all I need to say.
Well, that's why I kind of wanted to kind of bring this up, because you have been right. I mean, eHex has been outperforming, a Hex Classic for quite some time. And I kind of wanted to maybe we don't need to beat a dead horse here, but in my opinion, man, I think this might ultimately be for the good, because if we have essentially the community directing the majority of its buy pressure more towards one side of the fence than the other, well, then there is the argument that helps, consolidate buy pressure and maybe, helps one side perform better than the other side. What's your take on that?
I absolutely agree with that. And it's just so like Hex on PulseChain is so much more advantageous in so many ways. And you just like peel back the onions, you peel back the layers of the onion, and you start to realize how tragic it is that people are sort of trying to equate the two hexes in just like every way possible. And I mean, what do I mean by that? It's like, one is the split buy pressure, people that are coming in now and supporting PulseChain, using PulseChain, they don't get to experience the MAD gains to its fullest potential because people are buying up on the Ethereum side. So there's that. There is the fact that it is not affordable to stake Hex on Ethereum. It is unaffordable. Like, the amount of stakes that had to bleed out last bull run was astronomical. It was so big that Richard Hart created his own L1 blockchain. It's called PulseChain. It was just because it was so expensive and costly to stake your Hex there. What was Hex created to do? It was created to stake. So, I mean, there's really that aspect. It also is bad for the adoption of PulseChain. Like, the onboarding of PulseChain, meaning people are not using PulseChain. When they buy Hex on PulseChain, they need to use PLS token as gas. So they need to buy PLS token, right? That's good for the Pulse price. When they stake it, they need to spend Pulse. They need to unstake it. They need to spend Pulse. When they want to trade for it, for the Hex, they need to spend Pulse. That brings attention to PLS and, you know, drives the prices of PLS. You know, when they're transacting on the decentralized exchange, PulseX, there is a buy and burn mechanism, right? So the PulseX holders get their bags pumped from the adoption of Hex on PulseChain and PulseChain. So it's good for the PulseX holders and the Pulse holders, and it's good for the people. You can actually stake Hex, which is what it was meant for. And like this legitimizing eHex, it also, you know, a lot of people like to say the big money is going to want to use Ethereum, you know, the big whales, they don't care about. It's like, okay, so then you're putting the big money, first of all, on Ethereum, and basically the big money is what pumps the price of something. And that means that the retail who can't use PulseChain don't get to benefit from the price appreciation. And therefore, the big money doesn't get to benefit because you have a split of the retail and the big money and institutional money, whatever. It's like, it's bad for the institution and the whales. It's bad for the retail. They both don't get as much gains. And the institutions get screwed by the massive stake and unstake fee and all those kinds of things. It's just so bad in so many ways. It's also confusing. Like Randy Hilarski said, as a bullish argument for eHex, people that see the highest of stakes, they're going to go straight to Uniswap or on hex.com, which for some reason hasn't updated it. Shout out to Ash for pointing that out. But if you look at hex.com, it still has the eHex. So people are going to accidentally buy eHex, and whoops, they can't stake it, or it's going to cost them a lot of money to stake it and to unstake it. So it's like so bad in so many ways. It's like, I can't find a reason to believe that eHex is on equal footing with Hex. The only reason I could think of is I have 10,000 T shares on Ethereum and I want a good rate when I exit. I want to be able to prop up the value. So when my stakes mature, I can get more money out of it.
You want that exit liquidity.
You have all those T shares on PulseChain. So, you know, it's just a matter of basically taking the benefits of the community. You know, it's basically the benefits of yourself at the expense of the community and the new onboards as a whole. So you're essentially making it a bad experience for the new onboards because you want to pump your own bags, even though you already have your bags on the PulseChain side. So fuck you. Like that's called selfish. That's called being in it for yourself. And when everyone's in it for themselves, it's not healthy for the community as a whole. It does not bode well for the greater good. When everyone benefits, when everyone's in it for everyone else, we all benefit. But when everybody's trying to, you know, has their own little agenda, like they want to preserve or you know, pump the value on their Ethereum side, you know, that's called being in it for yourself, I think. I mean, not everyone that's doing it is necessarily thinking that when they do it. I think a lot of people are just listening to listening, and they're sort of naive. They don't really know what they're talking about. but a lot of people are being selfish, and that just sows distrust. It's bad for the health of the community as a whole, and therefore for the success of the community.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Sorry, finish your thought.
No, it's the same thing with the INC token. I think most people, I mean, it's not really the best time to say this because it's been pumping, but I think most people, I don't know about most people, but a lot of people don't truly believe that it's the best token or it's going to have the maddest gains, but they're LPs. They're getting thousands of dollars of that. So they want to tell people to buy it. I mean, they want to prop it up. I'm not saying this is for everyone. It's not the case. A lot of people, I think are making a genuine mistake, but a lot of people, just sort of are putting their benefit at the expense and the detriment of the of the community as a whole, but especially the new onboards. And when it comes to building a community and growing the network and exponentially, right? The Metcalfe's law thing, the most important thing is to treat the new onboards well. Because you cut off the growth at the roots if you don't make the experience of the new people the number one priority, essentially. And that's it. And I'm proud to say that, first of all, my thesis has been right. They said it would never go 2-1. They said it would be parity. It went 2-1. It's not parity. There's no OA pumps. There's no OA liquidity locking. And even more so, it's been great. It's been great for the community as a whole. The community is starting to flourish. There's this common understanding that, at the very least, Hex is way far superior to eHex. It's not like close. It's not equal. Some people still argue like, hey, eHex, maybe it's a play. Maybe if you've been here for a while, you could try and get more T shares, or I know Randy Alarski said like 70-30. I mean, there is still some of that, but as a whole, people are coming to the realization that there's no parity, and we should support Hex on PulseChain. And I think that's a really good thing, and I'm very optimistic about it.
You brought up so many good points there, but perhaps I just want to start off by saying I really appreciate your willingness to flush this all out, because these little nuances matter. These little nuances affect your return on investment at the end of the day. And I think this is a reality that our quote unquote community understood much more well 2 years ago. But I think a large portion of us have forgotten the extreme importance of considering these little qualitative differences, of the importance of understanding and parsing out these little nuances when it comes to coming to reasonable conclusions to how your investment might perform. I think it's very, very important to flush these things out, and I think there is a great deal of hesitance, to put it mildly, from a not insignificant portion of people within the Hex community to not address these issues. But I think it's extremely important to address. And one thing that you mentioned recently that's kind of on my mind is the fact that a lot of people are in this for themselves. And you got to understand that when people discuss this issue, they're not always keeping, their audience's best interests at mind. A lot of these people have a lot of T-shares, a lot of Hex, providing a lot of liquidity, earning a lot of incentive token. And you got to understand that maybe, they have a financial incentive for having the position they hold. And look, wouldn't it be great if there was parity? Wouldn't it be great if the OA, was able to pair the two? Look, ultimately,
no, it wouldn't. That would split it, sell pressure.
Yes, and I suppose the whole argument, like originally, as to like why this could have theoretically worked. I'm trying to think of like back in the day, like when this whole idea of PulseChain doubling the supply was originally proposed. The whole idea, I suppose, looking back, was that PulseChain would reach such a wider audience that the dilution would be compensated by PulseChain just reaching a much wider audience. And while that may end up being the case, ultimately having two sides of a thing does dilute buy pressure no matter what way you slice it. But also,
and it's not just about the diluted buy pressure. It's about the fact that like less gains is one thing, but like new onboards are just going to get wrecked on their stakes. Like that's like even worse. That's like toxic for the community. It's
oh my god, a week or so ago, might have been 2 weeks, sometime in the near past, I was doing some bridging over from Ethereum to PulseChain, and it was at the time that Jack Levin was doing some kind of thing with his vampire thing. And man, I was being quoted like $80-$90 in the fucking middle of a bear
retarded.
market for a swap. In the middle of a bear market before Bitcoin halving. You guys, and that's just one dude doing one thing on Ethereum.
No.
Guys, you gotta understand right now, Ethereum gas fees are manageable, but it is going to become stupid, absurd in the bull market, even approaching the bull market. Guys, you gotta understand, if Ethereum goes to what, 8K, 10K, 12K, 15K, what do you think gas fees are gonna be? I bet you anything, we're gonna see swaps, transactions in the thousands of dollars this bull cycle. Especially, the closer we get to, things getting more parabolic. And sure, they're introducing scaling. There's Arbitrum, all these other things. But you got to understand, these things are like a Band-Aid on a dam that's breaking. Because like while these things might improve scalability 10% here, 20% here, 50% there, you're onboarding people by orders of magnitude greater, that these little small, improvements in scaling doesn't catch up to the adoption, to the growth of the adoption. Adoption is outpacing the scaling. So my point is, gas fees are very, very likely to be a huge problem. And for a lot of people coming in, and like retail is not irrelevant, man. Like I know people like to point out how whales are super important, but retail isn't irrelevant. And with retail coming a couple $100, couple $1,000, couple tens of thousands of bucks, unstaking, like staking and unstaking, you have to pay many hundreds, potentially thousands of dollars. That is prohibitive. And this is the whole reason, like you mentioned, why PulseChain was introduced in the first place. And so I think, it's a really good point you bring up when you say how if we divert our attention to PulseChain, it supports our community. You have the PulseChain deflation action, PulseX buy and burn action. It seems to me like this is frankly, I hate to put it this way because I hate to frame things in a fucking like us versus them mentality, like framing, because we're all on the same team. But it seems to me like in large part, this whole trying to keep eHex alive is just whales trying to protect their
it's just selfish. It's just selfish, and it's greedy, and greed kills. It's disgusting, and you see that happening. Yeah, it's disgusting because they have it on the other side. So what I'm saying is if it does okay or whatever, fine. I'm not saying it's going to zero, but don't legitimize it. Don't go on your stream and tell new onboards it's the same thing. That's the thing. It's like you got your copy, and whenever there's forks, I mean, that's what happens. Like Ethereum Classic to Ethereum, there was a problem with Ethereum Classic. There was a problem, so they created Ethereum. Nobody that got their Ethereum said, oh, it's the same. There'll be parity. There was none of that. And this should not be the exception.
And there is one like counter argument to like the pro eHex side of things, which is, today Ethereum is the largest chain for DeFi. That's where the most volume is. That's where the most whales are. So I suppose you want the Hex product accessible to the largest market. But like I think that
I don't think so, because that means if you legitimize it and you tell the largest people, that the largest bag holders, to go stake on Ethereum, buy Hex on Ethereum, then they're not going to go to PulseChain. What should be said is bridge over to PulseChain and then stake there.
Yeah, but I suppose they would argue that like extra step is a friction point that will make some percentage of those whales not even bother in the first place.
No, because we're investing now based on how we think things are going to be in the future, and now it's a friction point. But that friction point should, and I believe will, be solved by centralized exchange listings. So if you tell people to do it on Ethereum, and then there's sort of a centralized exchange listing, and obviously rendering eHex completely obsolete. I mean, are those people that bought and staked there, are they going to be appreciative? I mean, they're not. They would have done better on the PulseChain. So it's sort of like Bitcoin in its early days. In its early days, it took about 4 or 5 days to get your Bitcoin, you know. But if you bought it then, you know, when it became easily accessible and seamless, you were super, super, super wealthy. So I think the same thing holds true today with PulseChain. It's like, yeah, it's not as seamless, but the people that, you know, take the time to go through the bridge are going to outperform. Their investment is going to outperform those that didn't by orders of magnitude, and they won't have a crazy unstake fee as well. So it slows down the adoption also. Like, if everybody's united behind PulseChain, then centralized exchanges are going to be that much more willing to list PLS. If people are still stuck in their old ways of Ethereum, then maybe they'll list eHex or something, which would be a tragedy. The point is that Ethereum is of the past. It's over. It's done. I like to quote Herb Brooks. It's done. It's over. It's a dinosaur. It's not scalable. PulseChain is the future. PulseChain is the future. When we invest our money, we invest based on what we think is the future, not the past. So the people that are still stuck in their old ways on Ethereum, stubbornly stuck there, are going to get left behind. That's essentially what it is.
Okay. Yeah. I think this makes some degree of sense, man. And well, I wanted to pick your brain as to, like, what's your intuitions about the future with like eHex and PX? Do you think we'll maintain kind of this 2-to-1 ratio? Do you think the ratio will like slowly diverge more and more over time? Like, how do you view the future of eHex and PX evolving?
So you know the compound interest calculator. It starts off like level, and then like after a certain amount of years, it just like
It gets
goes up like crazy. Yeah, that's because of compounding interest, right? So they say if you outperform the S&P 500 by 2% a year or something, you're an amazing investor, and you think it's only 2%, but the next set year 2, it's 2% of the additional 2%, and then
especially if you're reinvesting. Yeah,
exactly. It's compounding. Your 2% gains are compared to the principal. They become considerably more a few years down the line. So the point is that Hex every time it pumps, with the exception of the last one, pumps more, dumps less. So if it outperforms 1% every pump, the next pump it's going to outperform 1% on the 1%, and then on the 1% on the 1%. So I think the ratios will only accelerate. I think we're going to be looking at 3-to-1, 4-to-1, 5-to-1, 6-to-1, even 10-to-1 eventually. That's just the way it works. And furthermore, right now, like we said, Ethereum is cheap. Ethereum is affordable. When it stops being cheap, it's only going to accelerate the process. So I think that the ratios will continue to widen. I don't think there will be an equilibrium. Does that mean that eHex is going to zero? That's what a lot of people say. You're saying it. I'm saying against Hex, yes. But against the dollar, maybe not. But is it going to reach all-time highs ever again? I don't know. But I'm not as confident in that as I am in Hex reaching all-time highs and reaching $5, $10, $15, $20. I'm a lot more confident in that happening with Hex. And that's the reason why I say what I say. I don't want to. It might, maybe when Hex hits $5, eHex will be at 30, 40 cents. Maybe it'll surpass its all-time high. But I'm certainly not as confident in that as I am confident that Hex is going to hit $5. So the overall point is that there's no reason for me to legitimize eHex. I mean, it's not good for the community. It's not good for anybody. It's like maybe at most it'll find an equilibrium. It can't find an equilibrium. I don't see that happening. That doesn't make any sense to me.
What's your Hex price predictions? Like, I've kind of shared some of my thoughts on your show before, but what do you think? Like, how do you think about price predictions with Hex specifically?
So I was talking about this on the stream. I'm very excited. I think what I could see happening during the bull market. So originally I said Pulse is going to outperform. It's going to be the best performer because it's new, but it's not really quite new. And I explained this in my Twitter. I don't know if you want to go deep into that, but it's not quite new in the sense that people think it's new. Because I mean, what makes these new things go up really fast and really high really quickly. You know, I'm saying it's the fact that there's less people in there. You know, everyone that got in is not sitting on much profits. They have high expectations, right? There's nobody getting in ahead of you. I mean, there's less people getting in ahead of you, right? So when you jump into Apple stock, like how many people are already holding that are on 10x's, 20x's, 100x's, that the next 2x, they're 20x, they're 100x now 200x. I mean, they're just so much more prone to selling. You know, they don't have the expectations that you do. You're waiting for a lot more. Point is, you get in on day one, nobody's up, you know, everybody's waiting for a lot higher prices. And so it's just more upside. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
It does, but don't you? I think that argument might also apply to Hex. I mean,
No.
you don't think so? We have all these Hex people with now their eHex is worth even less. Now they're placing an even greater reliance on their PX to perform, so that in their minds, you know, the value they thought they would have, you know, manifests itself.
No,
like it seems like they're in a similar position.
No, so it's not conclusive, but it hasn't been happening like that, right? I mean, Hex has been performing better
short term, but
consistently.
short term. But does the short term translate to what might happen long term? It's an open question. I'm asking.
No, so here's the thing. So think about PulseChain. It's not new in that sense, because the people that got in, there was a transference of the profits from Hex to PulseChain with the sacrifice, right? They're up 1,000x on their Hex, and now they sacrifice it for PulseChain. They're still up 1,000x. Just the sell pressure is not going to be in Hex anymore. It's going to be in PulseChain, you know? But the only thing is that PulseChain launched in the bear market, right? So PulseChain launched in the bear market, you know, after the flush. So these people are getting their 1,000x back, right? So you know, they have a lot less money. You know, their Hex bags have went down like 98%, right? But their PulseChain is at the same value it was during the sacrifice. So their 1,000x gains is there. So maybe they don't sell now, but once PulseChain doubles it, they're at a 2,000x, and then it doubles again, they're at a 4,000x, right? So they're just at every level, there's just that much more potential sell pressure. Yeah, when you compare it to Hex,
that argument applies to Hex, though.
No, because Hex is down 98%. It had a flush. It had a flush.
Yes.
So the people that would have gotten out got out. Right. So it's just lighter now. It's like sort of the comparison, and same thing with PulseX, probably to an even bigger extent because of more sacrificers, whatever. But I give the comparison to sort of like a hangover. You know, there's two people. You party. You know, you're up till 4 a.m. You wake up the next day, you know, and you're nauseous. Some people throw up. You know, they force themselves to vomit. Others don't. But who has a better next day? It's the ones that vomit. So sort of PulseChain hasn't really vomited, at least yet. And it's sort of holding back the gains. And same thing with PulseX. Hex vomited already. That's why it's lighter. So yeah, PulseChain and PulseX are in their first cycle, but they're not in their first cycle in the sense that Hex was in its first cycle last bull market, or in the sense that like Phantom was in its first bull market, and Sandbox were in their first bull market. It's not the same thing, because a lot of the gains that, you know, result in potential sell pressure at every level are present in PulseChain and less present in Hex. So what I'm explaining is how things have been playing out. That doesn't mean in the future it's not conclusive, but I think there's a good chance that there's reason to believe it could continue like this.
Yeah, I think there is some reason, and I appreciate you drawing the distinction of how essentially, you know, that economic energy and the profits was transferred into PulseChain, into PulseX. But I would also argue that in the sense with Hex staking, that those profits and the economic energy to the downside that those stakes potentially have
No, it's more to the upside, the staking, because there's less liquid. Everything in PulseChain and PulseX is liquid.
Short term, absolutely. But what I'm saying is just how the economic energy and the profits were transferred into PulseChain, into PulseX. It's the hex staking is a similar mechanism where, yes, in the short term, absolutely makes it more liquid. It makes participants who are participating within the market active, withdrawing liquidity, absolutely. But when those hex stakes expire, that's potential sell pressure. A lot of people kind of restake the principal and sell the interest kind of thing. There's a great deal of nuance in hex. The hex community is famous for loving hex and wanting to accumulate hex. But what I'm suggesting here is just as how the PulseChain sacrifice and the PulseX sacrifice acted as kind of a way to encapsulate your hex profits, and when it goes live, you're susceptible to those profit takings taking place. I'm wondering if the hex staking behavior leads to kind of a similar consequence. Maybe you're not. I'm just thinking about this out loud here for the first time. Maybe I need to flush this idea out some more. But something also that came to mind is that what I think could be another important.
No, but wait. Let's just. I just want to address that point. Is that the staking makes it less liquid?
Yes,
it's more locked up.
Yeah.
So isn't that more of a reason for hex to have more upside?
Short term, yeah. But like those just how like the sacrifice phase. You had a bunch of these profits. You sack it. There's like a 2-year wait period, and now PulseChain being live is basically like the same thing as like a hex stake that you staked out for 2 years. Now expiring. So just how you brought up the point how people encapsulated their profits in basically the sacrifice phase, and now that PulseChain's like live, you had that potential sell pressure. I think a hex stake acts in a similar fashion.
Yeah, but over these last like 2 years, everybody that had stakes maturing had the ability to end stake it and flush.
Yeah. And actually, another thing that kind of counteracts my point that I just thought of is I think one important thing that makes my point, I think, less powerful is that with the hex stakes is that they're continuous. So it's not like it's just a one-time event where economic energy is delayed out into the future. It's constant. It's always happening. Where the sacrifice phase was like a one-time event where you delay economic energy into the future. So I think that. Yeah, I think that kind of counteracts my point a little bit. But just am I making any kind of sense, or am I just speaking to myself?
I mean, you're giving the argument that like hex has the issue that there are always stakes unlocking and could sell down the price, right?
Well, just how that was kind of similar to how
I know, but but those sacrifices were so much bigger. It's not like comparable to a couple big stakes coming up. This was everything. This was thousands and thousands of X's of profits from tons of different individuals throughout the community given to them after they lost 98% of their money on their hex that they had. So like. I mean, it's an issue. I mean, that's not to say that it's conclusive that hex is going to do better. I mean, that is what we're seeing right now. I mean, what I'm saying, right. I'm observing, and I'm saying, that's like we all thought hex and Pulse and PulseX were the shiny new objects. They were going to do better, and that wasn't the case. So I'm stating why. Now, does that mean that in the future it's going to continue like that? That's I guess the question.
Yeah, that's the interesting question, right? And I'm not even sure myself. I just find it interesting to kind of like parse this whole thing out and figure it out in real time. One thing though to consider is the psychology of new participants entering the market, where new people I think have this come in with understanding that things within its first cycle tend to outperform, so they might choose to deploy their dry powder towards the first cycle things rather than the second cycle things. Because my intuition is that I think Hex has been greatly oversold, and I understand the distinction between eHex and PHEX, but it's been rather suppressed, even sentiment-wise, psychology-wise. And so when it's been sentiment-wise so suppressed for so long, I don't think it's completely unreasonable that it can outperform short-term. The interesting question, I think, is long-term. And something else to note, too, is that if we look at kind of Ethereum in the altcoins, what's happened historically is that Ethereum kind of leads and then the altcoins pump. So maybe what we could see is, instead of like outperformance or something, we see maybe PulseChain come the bull market lead first, and then PulseX, and then Hex, kind of because they're tokens on the main chain. Perhaps this is all speculation, right?
Yeah,
But,
I like what you're saying. That because people think new things do better, they buy the new thing, and then therefore the new thing does better. I mean, that's possible. I also said exchange listing. I think Pulse is going to be the first one, because if Hex gets listed, you send it to your wallet, you can't stake. You know, like, it's just, you need Pulse first, right? Like, you buy ETH, you send it to your MetaMask, you swap it for Hex. So I think it's important that Pulse is the first thing that's listed, because that allows people to buy and stake Hex and buy PulseX and use the Pulse chain. So I think that's an advantage that you see that Pulse chain has for future gains. It can maybe do better in this bull market. I think it solves the most prominent, the most prevalent issue in crypto, which is the Ethereum gas fees. That's the biggest problem. So I think there's a lot of reason to say that while Hex has been performing better, PulseChain still may perform better. And that's why I say that you have to own both. I mean, you have to own both, in my non-financial advice opinion. But the thing is that I just realized, I mean, obviously I realized it, but it has been growing on me, that I looked at my staking ladder, and I was thinking, just by buying putting a little bit of money into Hex now, relative to, you know, what I've been putting in or what I had during the bull market, I could like double, triple, quadruple the amount of T-shares I have. And irrespective of the price performance against each other, you know, the T-share rate is always going up in Hex. So, I mean, the point is that you can, with $1,000 staked for a couple of years, you could have like over 10 T-shares, just $1,000, meaning between now and when the bull market starts in like 6-7 months from now. It hasn't started yet, guys. I'm sorry. You could get hundreds, if not thousands, of T-shares, depending on your situation. And that, think of how expensive they were last bull market, and then think of the fact that they're 50% more expensive. And the price of Hex is probably going to be higher this bull market than it was last bull market. And Hex might even actually do better. So I think a lot of people that are looking at Hex and saying, I don't want it, I want PulseChain because it's the shiny new thing, or I want PulseX, I think they're really gonna kick themselves. And I think this is sort of the opportunity that we have in front of us that we just let slip away from us, you know, because we forget about the T-share system and all the things that exist in this community. It's like with PulseChain, if you miss it, you can always tell yourself, I'll wait for things to settle down, you know, and then I could accumulate a lot. But with Hex, earlier pays better. So yeah, aside from the dip, you're going against 25% increase. It's already 28,000 Hex per T-share. It's going to be probably over 40,000 within 2-3 years. So even if there's another 90% correction, the price is going to be higher than it is now. The T-share rate, it's unsalvageable. So I'm really trying to shift the emphasis on buying and staking Hex. That's really going to be my focus over the next couple of months. I want to be one of those people that has, you know, a lot of T-shares, that perpetual passive income. And now's the opportunity. It's never going to be the same.
Oh man, I got so many things to ask you. Before I go on, I just want to give a shout out to chat. Hex Fetty's in the chat, Stizzy, Village Watcher. I just don't want to ignore you guys. Thank you all so much for being here. I saw Ben Dubard was actually in the chat saying, got to go walk the dog. Hopefully I don't lose any weight. We'll eat some burgers afterwards to maintain allegiance. Have a good stream, Jen. Smash like button for equality. Thank you. That's a stunning and brave comment. Powerful. And everyone else in the chat, Hollywood Staker, Folks, like, subscribe, share, do all that good stuff. Now, I'm very glad, FURU, that you kind of brought things in this direction, because I wanted to ask you what your view is on the Maximus DAO perp pools, specifically because DESI, which is the 10-year stake, has the greatest dichotomy between the price of the DESI token and eHex. Last I checked, there was a 60% price difference. So DESI has to pump 60% to reach parity. Last I measured, but slightly different now, maybe to reach parity with eHex. What do you think about those perp pools?
Yeah, so so like at the end of the stake, they mature and you get back the hex back by it, right? It's like a
So my understanding is that, again, it was like a pooled stake. There was like a window time where people could send hex to the smart contract, gets pulled all at once. Once the stake expires, there's like a window, whether it's like 40 hours or a week or something, where you can deposit your DESI in the smart contract and receive your principal plus your interest. And then once that window closes, whatever's left gets rolled into another 10-year stake if it's DESI, but if it's based, it's a 1 year. If it's TRIO, it's a 3 year, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I think here's there's good and there's bad. The good is you could buy it at a discount now. The good is that it's completely backed by hex. And the good is also that you're not locked up and you could sell it early.
And you're getting t-shirts from back in the day as well, from 8-10 months ago.
Yeah, correct. But the bad is that it's not locked up and you could sell early. So I think the reason why you had such a community of like truck drivers, like average people, blue collar people that just became millionaires overnight was because they didn't sell early because of the time lock. So that's not present in DESI. But it's definitely something you could implement. I think you need native. I would argue it's better to have majority native. But you definitely could implement the DESI and Maxi and those HSIs into your strategy. Definitely. I definitely think it's something to implement.
Do you ever see like, even just like spitballing here, just like, do you ever see that that dichotomy closing? Because like I was kind of asking people on Twitter, like, why is there a 60% premium on the risk? Because I suppose there's smart contract risk, there's risk of like people front running the hex unstaking, there's risk of hex not being valuable 10 years from now potentially, but so like there is risk, and I can understand a premium on the risk, but 60%, if this thing ever reaches parity, you get 60% more hex. And that's just parity. What if we get a premium? What if, and here's something I've been considering, what if when the base pool expires, which is just the 1 year one, it expires this October. What if it works? What if it pays the interest plus the principal plus the interest, and maybe the market becomes more confident in the smart contract? What if we get parity? What if we get a premium? So for me, I actually sold half my liquid PHEX for DESI. What's your take on all that? I mentioned a couple of things.
I think that I think that yes, it's going to have to balance out. I mean, that's just the way it works, right? There's arbitrage. It's not eHex PHEX. Like, this thing is actually backed by real hex. You will be able to unwrap it. So like, especially as it gets closer to maturity, and it's going to get closer to parity with its value of hex, because people, if you got to be an idiot if a month from now you could redeem all that DESI for hex and you don't buy
plus
it.
interest.
So but for now, it's like it's. I mean, since it's 10 years away, I mean, a lot of people that buy hex are not thinking about staking and stuff like that, and they just want to hold it liquid. And there's no guarantee that your liquid DESI will be the same. Will have the same returns. So I mean, the overall thing is, yes, it will reach parity, but that's going to be as it gets closer to the maturity, probably. But it may happen earlier. It may go to a premium, especially during the bull market, because there's just so much more money coming in.
Maybe that's what it takes.
Yeah. So it could go to a premium. But yes, unlike eHex, PHEX, DESI and HSIs are actually backed by hex. When maturity comes, you will get the hex. So there is arbitrage opportunity. Definitely.
Yeah, man. And there's risk. But if it works out, getting six, because I bought that dip, man. And if I can get, I understand the risk premium, but if it's fucking parity, man, I'm getting 60% more on my hex. Plus that massive, I think it was one of the biggest 10-year stakes. Bigger pays better bonus. The
Yeah, you get the
t-shirts
better
from 10 months ago. So there's risk, but there's also reward. And it's kind of an open question whether we get that parity, if it even comes, when, all this
But
stuff.
if you don't get the parity, you just unlock it after 10 years.
And get the interest plus the principal.
I mean, or you paper hand and you sell it for whatever it's worth.
I suppose. Yeah. Okay. All right. Now, one thing I wanted to get your opinion on, because I've been kind of on the fucking front lines fighting the battle with the whole incentive token debate. What's your take on incentive token? Is it the hidden gem that's gonna outperform everything else? Are we not getting it? Are we just kind of too stupid to understand what's going on? Is Richard Hart gonna wave a magic wand and sprinkle fairy dust all over the incentive token and make it the most T-share deflationary buy and burn thing ever? What's your view on this whole thing?
I'm so with you. I'm so with you on the INC thing. Also, I actually forgot to delve into it with him, but he was on the stream. I totally forgot to delve into it. But dollar cost crypto is a big he's very anti the INC token as well, and I think it's for good reason. So I don't have to go and tell people that INC is going to zero. It's like eHex. I don't have to do that. I mean,
I don't think anyone's saying that.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone's saying that.
It's enough for me to say that there's reason to believe, there's very legitimate reason based on very legitimate things, that it's not going to be the biggest winner, and it probably will be the biggest loser. So why is that? Well, we know why. We know it's just inferior game theory. It's given to people that are, you saw Sami's tweet about his impermanent loss. People want to offset that. It's sold to offset that. I mean, it's even Richard Hart himself said that, it's not, doesn't do anything, but for some reason nobody sees that. But the point is that, like, there's reason to believe it will be the worst performer in this ecosystem. So why would I tell people why would I shill the worst performer?
But FURU, what about Hart's Law? Don't you understand that because it's paired with PulseChain, it'll do better? Hart's Law?
This is like the dumbest. This is the biggest misconception about Hart's Law, that if it's in a liquidity pool together, it's automatically going to go up, right? What's Hart's Law? Like, if it's priced in Ethereum, right? And Ethereum goes up, since they're interchangeable, since it's priced in Ethereum, its price against the dollar goes up. It's like NFTs, right? If NFTs were 10 ETH, at $100, it's 1,000, but then ETH goes to 4,000. Now your NFT's 40,000. That's what Hart's Law is. The problem is, it's only an effective way of tracking another coin if they're both equally or closely as liked. But if INC is paired to Hex, right, in a pool, and Hex goes up, so therefore INC is priced in Hex, so it goes up. The people that hold INC, if they don't value it as much as Hex, you know what they do? If they don't value their INC as much as Hex, they take their INC, they drop it in the Hex pool, and they take out Hex, right? So
that's what I've been doing.
that's what everyone's doing. So it's like, it's basically Hart's Law makes it go up, but if people don't value it as much, it'll immediately be offset by the fact that everyone's dumping their INC into the pool and taking the Hex out. So, like, it was priced in more Hex, and now it's priced in less Hex. So if the Hex price goes up, and but the amount of Hex, if the Hex in the pool goes up 2x, you would think that the INC goes up 2x, right? Because it's priced in hex. But if the hex in the pool goes up 2x, but half the hex gets taken out of the pool in exchange for INC, then you're back to square one. That's what I'm saying. This Hart's law, the fact that like these people that are Hart's law purists do not understand how it works. It doesn't work like that. There's a reason why things are priced in different cryptos, but the USD value matches the US dollar pool. Like there's balancing out. It doesn't work like that. Is what I'm saying. I hope I'm making sense. What I'm saying is that Hart's law, it's not that simple.
It sounds like you're not towing the party line. It sounds like you're disagreeing with the dear leader. And so I think you should be kind of cast out, sent to the gulag.
No, we're not even disagreeing with the leader. I'm saying the leader would agree with us.
The truth doesn't matter. If I say that you're not adhering to the narrative, then you are spreading FUD. Okay, it doesn't matter that everyone understood these little nuances and the importance of these nuances 2 years ago. That is not the current narrative, Furu. Don't you understand? The current narrative is that everything is the same because of Hart's law, and you're not allowed to point out these differences.
It's just like so funny, man. Because like Richard Hart agrees with me on eHex. I think he does. I mean, you look at his tweets that he's been saying that like the community decided that Hex on PulseChain is worth more, it's better. It's more advantageous to use PulseChain, and he also said that INC is the worst token. Like it doesn't really do anything, but maybe it'll still go up. Like he's like, we're saying the things that he said, but still sort of getting casted out, but we're not getting cast out anymore. That's the thing. Like now we are the captains, not people that are like our opinion is considered very legitimate now because we are right.
Oh, and it'll become more and more obvious over time. Like when these things are brand new and it's not so clear how things will end up. I think there are some consequences to quote unquote being controversial, but like I think with us two specifically, man, with our whole willingness to kind of parse out the nuances between eHex, bHex, talk about incentive token, it's going to become more and more clear over time how I think beneficial it was for us to discuss these things. Because at the end of the day, man, these little nuances goddamn matter. And I see all the time, and this is why this is still relevant to talk about. I still see on Twitter people who ought to know better shill incentive token like it's the same goddamn thing as Hex or PulseChain. And if you like incentive token, that's one thing. But if you don't attempt at all to parse out the differences, that's doing a massive detriment to retail new people coming in, man. People coming in retail who like see their favorite influencers say, "Oh, incentive token is just the goddamn same as PulseChain." They're going to be hurt come the next bull market, man. I know they are, because I remember coming into this market not knowing so much, trusting my favorite influencer, and being hurt when they were wrong, being hurt because maybe they had influences that they weren't describing or letting people know, right? Maybe they knew things that they weren't kind of talking about because it was financially beneficial for them to do so. These things goddamn matter, man, and it breaks my fucking heart when I see these new people coming in and be like, "Oh, incentive token, like it's just as good as PulseChain." There's an extremely high chance that it underperforms, and we all know that. Giving your token to people who have a high incentive to sell it. And not to mention that the 100% uptime, flawless operation PulseX was supposed to pay incentive token plus fees. It didn't. And then I don't know if you saw this whole Somi thing. I know you commented on this, but he was kind of showing how even on V2, the current fees that were being advertised were actually false, and it was actually much lower, which again increases.
Yeah, that was a boo-boo. I think. I think it's hard to defend. They said that you were getting a certain APY and you weren't. I mean, that was
whoa, are you deviating from the party line, Furu? This is 100% uptime, perfect, flawless operation. What are you talking about?
No, well, the first error was awesome. It was like they pumped too much PulseX. Like they basically they bought and burned all the PulseX that should have been going to the LPs.
Yeah, which was hilarious.
Yeah, because I don't know.
It's so funny how long it took for people to. Didn't it take like 2 weeks?
No, dude, that was awesome. Like that was an awesome flaw. But yeah, this one was a mess up. I mean, listen, and I'm not a LP, but yeah, I think that was a mess up. That's fair. I can't hate on that. I think that was a mess up. They fixed it, right?
I don't know.
They didn't. Can we check right now?
But like, yeah, we can. But even if they display it, I mean, the whole issue is that they've been displaying shit incorrectly. So, do we even trust the new display?
Well, you could verify. You could verify it. Like,
right, you could verify, but you have to do the math of like of doing so. You know, like I don't know. Well, regardless, I'm sure it'll get fixed at some point. Kind of.
I hope it was fixed. Sami's not complaining, so it probably was fixed.
I'm sure it was fixed. Like
I've been
pointing it out, you know.
Yeah, I've been very critical of Sami. I don't think he's really staked. I mean, maybe he's staked, but like he does talk about a lot of like swing trading.
Is he a non-believer?
PulseX, and
is he a blasphemer?
eHex for Hex. I mean, yeah, I mean, so he just like encourages a lot of trading, a lot of LP, a lot of degen things that
burn him at the stake.
Burn him at the stake. So like I've been attacking him, but I still maintain tremendous respect for him for not unfollowing me, for taking it by the chin, for providing some great content. Also, like there's some really good things he said, but this one I think he's right. That was a mess up.
Hold on. I just gotta understand this correctly. Are you suggesting that you can disagree with someone slightly and it doesn't have to be the end of the world? Is this what you are suggesting?
He's funding my bags, bro.
Okay, you know what though? You mentioned okay, so I want to pick your brain more on this. Liquidity providing.
Yeah.
Do you think it's degen? Did you not touch it at all? Like what's your take on liquidity providing?
I think liquidity, well, it also depends on what kind of liquidity providing you're talking about. Because like if you're liquidity providing two coins that you like, right? Everyone tells you like Pulse and PulseX, or like Pulse and Hex. It's not as bad because they're both going to appreciate against the US dollar very significantly. So yes, there's still a permanent loss though, because you're going to be holding more of the one that does worse. I mean, but it's not as bad.
Yeah, but it's like at the end of the day, do I really mind if I have 5% less Hex, 5% more PulseChain? Yeah, maybe maybe Hex performs better, sure, but are you really like a loser at the end of it? Like they're both great things, is my
it depends on the differences of performance. Like if Hex does 100, if Hex does 1000x and Pulse does a 200x, then and you started off like 50-50 or something, yeah, you're a big loser. That's the thing. I'm saying like it's
do you think the difference is going to be that big?
Well, it's possible. I mean, we've been seeing there are huge differences in the volatility. Like when coins pump, think about the most recent pumps. Some pumped a lot more than others. So I think in long time frames, it's a very possible scenario. I mean, so there's that risk, but obviously it's not as bad. But there's the permanent loss against the U.S. dollar. That's a lot worse in the USD pools. The overall thing is liquidity providing is an important service that's important for the ecosystem, and also it's important for big bag holders. They need to liquidity provide. They need passive income. That's how they take profits. That's they could afford to designate what to them is a small percentage of their portfolio to liquidity providing. And if it suffers an impermanent loss, so be it. They took profits, or they have a nice income stream. And the rest of their holdings are giving them mad gains. So like if you're, for example, if you have $20 million worth of crypto, or 50, like people have that. There are people in our ecosystem that are worth tens, hundreds of millions of dollars. If you designate, let's say you're worth 20 million, you designate 3 million to LPing, you're getting significant income. You are doing something that's important for the ecosystem. you know, and it's your way of also taking profits, you know. So like it's very beneficial. And then when the price goes up like crazy, the remaining percentage, what was it? I said 5% or something, or
Yeah.
3%. The remaining 97% is, well, no, it was 20. So the remaining 17 million, you know, does incredibly well, and there's some impermanent loss which is absorbed easily. It's not a big deal. You get to live off that money. So I'm saying is it's very important. But for people that are coming in now that are only worth a couple $1,000, that are putting it all in liquidity pools, or even putting 25-50% of it in liquidity pools, like they think they're being cute and they're earning some passive income. But when there's massive upswings or downswings, when there's massive upswings, they are going to do way worse than the people that just sat on their hands and held. So it's and it's significant to them because they're not wealthy. So I think it's very stupid. I think overall it's a very important thing. Some people need to do it, and the ecosystem needs LPs. But people that are not big bag holders who are LPing are making a huge mistake, and it's been playing out well for them because things have been going pretty sideways. But like once that big upswing comes, which it's starting to happen, whatever it has happened recently, they're going to be the losers, and that's why does that make sense? If you're a big bag holder, you have to do it, and there's benefits. If you're small, you should not be doing it.
Yeah, I can understand and appreciate that perspective. My only thing, just from my perspective, is that for me on a pool like PulseChain to PulseX, where for me personally, I really don't mind if at the end of the day, I have 5% more PulseChain or 5% more PulseX, just because I think they'll be very correlated and I think they'll have comparable performance. But I don't know that for sure. It's most definitely a risk. All I would suggest is that in order to mitigate the risk of a permanent loss, if you're going to do so, do so with perhaps a minority-sized portion of your portfolio. You don't want to expose large portions of your portfolio to risk. Do so in correlated pairs, and then also extend your time horizon, thus allowing kind of the APR to compensate the impermanent loss, and also that kind of allows any kind of short-term deviations in the ratio to kind of perhaps maybe potentially flatten out over time. But there is risk nonetheless. And it's ultimately, whenever you engage in risk, it's ultimately an unnecessary activity. And I could see why just the people buying and holding, just keep it simple, stupid, is definitely kind of a viable route for sure. Yeah, I can understand that. Now, one thing too, man, we're running up against an hour here. Do you got to go, or can I keep you around for a little bit?
No, you got me, man.
Okay.
Come on, man. This is the best show. Come on.
Yeah.
Everyone, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, and share this everywhere. Let's get more people in here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%, man. Okay. There's a couple directions I want to go, but before I hop to the next thing, I remember you mentioning earlier, and I want to get you to concretely comment on this so I can clip it up. But you mentioned price predictions on Hex. You threw out 500x out there. What's your official? What do you think is a reasonable price prediction for PHEX? How do you even think about that?
I think it's gonna do very well. I think I honestly, anything on $2. People say $2. Let me just say first, the first thing that I always say is that what you see is, as price corrects, price predictions correct. When the price flushes, everyone's expectations flush, and they forget what happens during bull markets. So I see a lot of people out there that are saying PLS is only going to do a 40x, or Hex is only going to do a 40x. Dude, Ethereum last cycle did a 48x. That is the most blue chip crypto that's listed on every single exchange, every single centralized exchange, and held by every single institution that dabbles in crypto. If Hex, which is not blue chip by any means, it's not trading on any exchange, it's very inaccessible, and the expectation is that it will be accessible. It has a better game theory. It has all those things. You're taking on a way bigger risk. Whatever. I'm saying the idea that you only have a 40x upside is preposterous to me. It makes no sense, and it would be, frankly, a huge disappointment. I'm expecting a lot more than from both Hex and PulseChain. So with that said, I think $2 above $2 would be acceptable. That's a 200x. From the bottom, I think we could be looking between $5 and $10 for Hex this bull market.
$5 and $10, interesting. So, and from my perspective, because I think I broke down my rationale on one of your streams before. I think a kind of 1000x from the lows would make sense if Hex goes on to behave the way Bitcoin did from its first cycle to the second. And so my understanding, I could be wrong about this, there might be different charts, and depends what time frame you're measuring from, candle close, wick, yada yada yada. But right now on my screen, given the understanding that we could measure bottoms from different places, 1000x from what I'm looking at from the bottom, which is a 4-hour candle close, I think we could get $6 if Hex behaves like Bitcoin did from its first cycle to the second. But with all that being said, again, for me, man, I think this whole Hex price predictions in general is very dangerous, because you're engaging with the danger of kind of like arbitrariness. And I think it's much more important to kind of follow Bitcoin, its parabolic structure, understand that altcoins kind of pump after Bitcoin's reached its high, understand the parabolic structure with the altcoins, and maybe that's kind of like a closer way of actually realizing whatever gains the market has to realize. And something else, man, and I want to get your take on.
Let me just say, I
Yeah.
absolutely agree with that. Like, I think if Hex is at a 20x and you're a year in your January 2025, like, yeah, you gotta pack it in. I would agree with that 100%.
Yeah, right. That's a good point. Like if we're at a 20x at like fucking like just well into the bull market 2025, and you were hoping for that, 600x, maybe it's not going to get there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like something to be aware of. And I wanted to get your take on a fear of mine, because I'm having trouble coming to terms with price predictions in another aspect, which is I remember getting to this market back in 2020. Where every influencer was screaming from the rooftops, 200K, 300K Bitcoin. Fucking everyone thought this. Everyone was saying this. People, like, if you mentioned 160K Bitcoin, you got to understand, like, the sentiment. This is what, like, I'm trying to, for the new people who weren't around back then, the sentiment back in, like, summer 2020, beginning of the previous bull market, if you were saying anything less than 200, you were a crazy wild bear. I remember someone saying like 160, 140, 150, and they were like, people were like, whoa, like people on the panel, it was like a Bitcoin crypto panel. People were like, whoa, this dude's like a crazy, insane bear. And guess what? We got this insane like 65K, then a 69K double top. So not only was it like wildly less than what people thought, but it was a double top. It was just like the worst cycle to shake out as many people as possible. Just the worst structure you could possibly think of.
It was an erectile dysfunction top.
Exactly. And therefore, man, I kind of have like this PTSD. I'm worried about kind of some of these more like saying 1000x, 10,000x, even a couple 100x with PulseChain Hex. I have that worry. Do you think that's just something like what's your take on, like, how do you consider that the past and how people got that wrong moving forward? Like, how do you think we should think about that?
I mean, well, first of all, the good news is that you came in during the bull, I came in during the bull, really. And if you're here now, even if you completely miss it, you'll be up over 100x,
right?
Like for a long time. Like, so it's not the same as coming in, and then missing the top, which is to you like a 2x, and then you're just screwed for the entire bear market. It's not like that anymore. And especially if you're staked, you're earning the passive income, you have the T-shares. So there is that to think of. And so I think that it's not going to be as bad as this time missing it. As for your credibility of an influencer, I mean, I think you could miss it. I think you could definitely miss it, but why? So you're saying people shouldn't have high expectations because they might miss the top?
Yeah, what I'm saying is for myself, I'm kind of saying Like before doing the sacrifice, I was saying like probably 1000x, but I'm now more conservative where I probably say 100x from
No, so what I'm
day one
saying is
strategy.
like, so what about the people that, you know, were conservative and said Hex would do 50x and then it did a 10,000x, but they sold
Exactly.
50x.
So exactly. So we
So
have these two like things. Like, how do we make these two ideas
I'm saying
mesh together in a reasonable way?
it's either or. It could happen. You know, your conservativeness could screw you to the upside, or your you know
Over optimism is great to the,
your over optimism could screw you to the downside. So like, you just have to, I mean, implement the cycles and a thesis and hope that it works out. I mean, that's what people do. They put it on the line, and I'm hoping that I could get out at the right time, and you're hoping you could, and I'm definitely going to be talking about that a lot on my Patreon, and maybe on the stream as well. But I mean, that is what it is. Benjamin Cowan said lengthening cycles. You know, he had his reasoning, and he was completely wrong, and that's what happened. So I mean, you can miss it. You can't. I mean, some people do, some people don't. Very few people get out the exact right time, but I mean, you get out a little bit early or drop late, you're still in good shape. If you're like way off, then yeah, I mean, that's what we do as influencers. We're putting our social credibility and reputation on the line, and for that we get rewarded tremendously, but we get punished tremendously. So I mean, it is what it is.
But maybe you actually don't get punished tremendously. I mean, Bitboy Crypto, his money was like. It was tremendously
you know, that's the thing. That's the thing. You don't.
Buddy is doing better than ever.
I know. So maybe we could just be wrong. Anyone who cares.
Yeah, I guess maybe we could all just say 1000x, 10,000x. Hey, we're wrong. You walk away with 100.
Dude, I remember that video with TJ and Bitboy Crypto. They're like, if it goes below 30, if Bitcoin goes below 30K, we're selling it all. And then like, you went below 30K, and they're like, you know what? We didn't sell.
Man, that last bull market was so fucky because like people gotta understand. People were expecting this one shot parabolic to shot to like 200, 300K. But what we got with this was this like Olympic 65K, this consolidation around 30K, where everyone thought it was like the support level. If we break it, shit's going down forever. And then we just kind of like wick below it and then immediately recovered to just slightly put in a higher high. It was the craziest.
Yeah.
Bull
and then
market.
like
everyone
like Richard Hart called it, and everyone's like, okay, it's over. And then like it started pumping, and everyone's like, oh, never mind, we're resuming. They got in, and then they got screwed. So like everyone got, it was, that's how it works. I mean, this market is vicious. It's vicious. You just have to be patient. You have to buy and hold. That's why I think I like hex staking so much, because playing one cycle is riding the tiger, but if you're in the right one and you're playing two, it doesn't even matter anymore. I mean, if you're in Bitcoin from 2009 and you're cashing out now, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
What's your view on hex staking and how to construct a hex ladder? Do you think you should be 100% stake? Do you think you should have some portion liquid, some portion stake? Do you think it makes sense to like just do 1 year, 1 year, 1 year? Do you wait it so your hex stake come out, you know, before, you know, a bull market? Like what's your whole take on that?
I mean, it's different for everyone, because like some people are like 75 years old. So like, do they really want to make a 15-year stake? You know, so like it, and like,
let's say your average kind of 20 to 40-year-old. I think that's kind of the average audience. The last time I checked my analytics.
Yeah, I mean, I think you should. It's definitely bigger and longer time frames is better. Meaning, if you have a yearly stake, if you have 5 million hex and you stake it for 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, 4 years, and 5 years from now, you're not going to earn as much as if you just stake it all for 5 years, right? Because longer pays better. So like, you definitely want to prioritize longer and bigger, because bigger pays better and longer pays better. So I think the best way to start is you start, first of all, I mean, at this point, you want to get over 100K stakes because you can, which is awesome. You know, might not be like that soon, but you want to start with the 15. And then when you could get another 100K from your DCA, go to a 10-year and then go to a 5-year. And then fill it out from there. Then go 14, you know, 9 and 4. I don't know, but I think we don't know how much longer you're going to be able to get like 100K stakes so easily, or like for some people 1 million hex stakes like easily. So we don't know how long that's going to last. But yeah, I think it should start 15 and then work your way back. You know, and then fill it all out. Try and get it to yearly at least. But that's really what it is. Yeah, I think and I guess I would have said there's no point in staking if you're going to take profits within the next 2 years, but that's not true anymore because you could stake for a year or two because you're earning
Exactly.
because there's no high gas fees because of PulseChain.
Yeah, 10% a year is not insignificant. Like, bro,
Yeah.
if you get 10% a year and that 100x's, that is not insignificant. For
Yeah.
2 years, you're earning 10% every year. That's not
stake for a
insignificant.
month, stake for
Yeah.
2 months, figure out, a lot of people don't want to do 15 years, do it for a month, see if you like it, get a little comfortable, do more. But I think PulseChain, it's an incredible thing. You could stake for a year now or 2 years. So like,
yeah.
It's
almost like cheap fees is kind of relevant. It's almost like
right. Some people listening to them, you would not think that, right?
Yeah,
it's really horizontal integration of the Ethereum blockchain to benefit Ethereum. Horizontal equals MC squared.
Yeah. I'm okay. So my whole take on this is the way I would do hex stakes moving forward is weight them where I would only do hex stakes to open up about roughly a year after each latest Bitcoin halving. Now,
yeah, that's fair.
Because I'm trying to kind of target roughly a bull market, but there's some people who say that the Bitcoin halvings will become less and less relevant moving forward. Yeah. What's your whole take on the importance of the Bitcoin halvings? And let me tell you what's kind of preambling my question, because I had I don't want to say debate, a discussion with Buck from Fiat the other day on a Twitter space, where I was arguing how the Bitcoin halvings are still very relevant to consider. He was arguing that the Bitcoin halving is pretty irrelevant because what truly matters from his point of view is at the end of the day what affects the macro economy, which is more or less just interest rates. He said that that's kind of the major macro mover and how that's the most important thing to consider. Where my point of view is 100% yes, that's correct, absolutely, but you still need to consider niche sector relevant things. So just how like in the stock market, if you increase your dividend or if you announce higher than expected earnings, how that affects the stock. At the same time, so does the interest rate. So like my perspective is that it's both. You got to consider both. He thinks the Bitcoin halving is rather irrelevant. What's your whole view on the importance of considering the Bitcoin halving moving forward, like incorporating that understanding with your hex stake ladder, with your accumulation strategy? Like, how do you? What's your take on all that?
Well, he's saying the Bitcoin halving's less
pretty irrelevant. It's like priced in because like everybody knows about it. It's priced in plus interest rates.
But interest rates throughout the duration of Bitcoin were at like 0, so it doesn't matter if they're static. Then it doesn't matter. You have to look at other things. I mean, if they're changing, yes, if interest rates stay high, yes, it matters. But if they stay low, then you have to look at other things. So, I mean,
yeah. And from his perspective, because I'm trying to not misquote him, is that the bear market kind of more or less coincided with the rate hikes in the interest rates.
Yeah, I think that Bitcoin can only do well in easy money. I mean, in the long run, and there is easy money, and I think there will. I mean, there isn't now, but inflation is at 3% now, and then it's going to be at 2%. And once it's at 2%, it's an inevitable lowering of them. They just can't keep them this high. We're not 1980 anymore. It's the overall point. So, I mean, and then once that happens, interest rates are irrelevant. Like interest rates are irrelevant once they're just 0 the entire time. So,
yeah.
So I mean, yeah, he's right. If interest rates is like something that's like going up and down, like it's not like they're pretty much 0 always lately. I mean, since 2008. So, and they're only high now because of inflation. So, the overall point is that the Bitcoin halving matters now. I mean, it bottomed on time. It topped on time. It's not a guarantee that it's going to continue to play out. I think I'd argue it's less likely that it will continue to play out. But you have to, even if you're saying that it's going to break, that is taking into account the that is taking into account the halving. If the cycles, if you're saying that the cycle is gonna break and it's gonna be front run, or it's gonna be lengthened, then you're taking into account the cycles, right? So I mean, if you're saying that the cycles are gonna shorten, you're thinking of cycles. So I mean, is it gonna continue to play? I think as Bitcoin matures, and I think it's gonna get flipped by Ethereum, and it's gonna be less significant piece of the market. So as it becomes less significant, and as it becomes more heavy, I think it'll take less and less of a it'll take more of a backseat. Yeah, I think it's
so that's a good point. Which is, again, there's a good reason to think that Ethereum might flip it with this XRP news. Interest rates. I completely agree. I think more and more so moving forward as time moves on, as things develop, these more outside factors, sector independent factors, like ETH introducing sharding or whatever, scaling, like those things will be more and more influential moving forward. My whole thing is just like, I don't think it makes sense right now to completely and utterly throw away what has historically been, seemingly according to a chart, the most influential bullish catalyst we've had kind of historically. And I bring this up because I have trouble completely, because people bring up all these great points of how like it's the macro that really affects things. And while that is a fantastic point, I've trouble like throwing away the significance of Bitcoin's having, just because if you act based off it, it's an incredibly useful thing to do. And if you behaved, go ahead.
It just doesn't make any sense that he's saying it's irrelevant. It literally topped and bottomed exactly on time. Like, how could you say that it's irrelevant? It's definitely relevant.
If you
want to say it's not going to be relevant, fine. If you don't take any profits, within that time frame, because the interest rates don't get raised, you're a fucking idiot. That's it. No disrespect.
No, and that's my thing. It's just like, if you look at a chart,
this is the guy that said Pulse is doing a 40x,
50x.
This guy doesn't know what he's talking about, dude.
Bro, I would love to. I don't know. I don't know. I think it would be interesting for you two to have a conversation. But again, it isn't fucking But I do genuinely love. Like, I was a debate kid, man. I love exploring differences of opinion. I love talking to people who disagree with me.
I mean, it's economics. When you have a supermarket, right, and there's 100 customers a week on average, each buying one bottle of milk, so there's a shipment of 100 bottles of milk a week to satisfy the 100 customers, right? That gives it a price. If 1 week it's 50 bottles of milk get delivered to the same 100 customers, then only 50% of them are going to get it. So they're going to fight for it with a higher price. They're going to bid higher. The same is true with Bitcoin. When Bitcoin has a static or increasing demand, the community has had increasing participation, and the money hitting the market, due to the halving, has decreased. So they're going to pay more. I mean, that's supply. I don't know how you could say that's not significant. Of course, it's significant.
Well, he would argue that at this point, the difference in the amount of Bitcoin being produced is so small that that each halving is like less and less relevant. But let's say you even grant that. Let's say you do, which there's a strong reason. People would argue that we shouldn't grant that, but let's say you do grant it for a moment. I would even argue that what truly matters is the sentiment. Like, what matters is that once we pass this threshold, this inflection point, given how we've acted historically, people seem to all agree. If we all agree together that this catalyst marks a difference in sentiment, where we could feel more comfortable deploying capital and we'll have macro higher highs and higher lows, that's significant. Like, market sentiment is not irrelevant.
I don't know. I mean, it may in the future. Again, there will come a point where it breaks, but it hasn't. So how's it not significant? We bottomed a year after the top, and we top a year or 15 months after that. I don't know what he's talking about. So, he's saying that's what's happening. I mean, it might break, but when it breaks, if you're predicting it's going to break, you're going to say it's going to break, which means it's relevant. I mean,
yeah, which is my thing, which is like if it is indeed going to be irrelevant, I don't think we've seen evidence of that yet based off a chart. But to be fair to him, because like whenever I disagree with someone, I want to do my best to in good faith present their side of the argument. He would argue that another reason why it's irrelevant is essentially because crypto, in his opinion, because I asked him to clarify this, is an efficient market. And for those of you who don't know the difference between like an efficient and deficient market, an efficient market is essentially when everyone has the same news all at once. Like in the stock market, everyone gets the quarterly earnings report released all at once. Everyone hears when an interest rate hike or decrease happens all at once. Everyone hears the news of when quantitative easing or tightening happens all at once. So these things kind of get priced in. But in my opinion, I would argue, and again, FURU, I want to get your take on this, is that we actually haven't seen evidence. I don't see evidence of an efficient market anywhere. I mean, like a parabolic market where we get like a parabolic pump and dump, that's not an efficient market. We can't even agree with each other as to what is and isn't a consensus mechanism with longevity. Everyone disagrees with each other. Proof of work, proof of stake, different forms of proof of work. Like that plays off the fact that like Michael Saylor and big money, smart money, they're not acting based off the Bitcoin halving. It's like the only people who are like thinking about this is a handful of crypto YouTubers, and even the people who do think about this, half of them don't even end up acting on this. So like my whole thing is I don't see evidence of this being an efficient market. If this was an efficient market where like everyone understood this equally and behaved off it, then I can understand a macro event being priced in. But I don't see that evidence of market efficiency. What's your take on that?
Yeah, it's definitely not efficient. It's definitely not an efficient market. I mean, I'm not an expert on this sort of topic, like efficient markets. I did take economics a while ago, micro, but
but it just means everyone has the same.
Yeah, nobody even. A lot of people just nobody really true. That's why Richard Hart is so significant in Hex, is that like if everybody believed what Richard Hart believed, then it would be an efficient market. Meaning, a lot of people are still caught up in the idea that like the technology is the most important thing, or like when it's really the community, like he's talked about those things like Hart's law. It's just, this is a very like fast paced, quickly evolving system. There's like decentralized exchanges. Nobody even knows how they work and stuff like that. I mean, the metrics that are measured, to determine good and bad cryptos are very far. Like everybody has completely different. There's just like no data. I mean, it seems like Richard Hart has been like the most on point, and eventually everybody will go by his sort of metrics. Like, for example, the community being most important, and things like that. Like, that's like eventually when people sort of go to that realization, it'll be more efficient. But you don't have a textbook telling you how to invest in crypto. This is like,
yeah. No, exactly right.
There's no earnings. There's no balance sheet. The study the balance sheet of the Bitcoin it's very opaque, and there's freaking memes. Like, who would have thought like coins that are jokes, or like, so yeah. Does a joke coin tell you anything about efficient markets in crypto? I think that's like quite the opposite. And like, which joke will catch which meme will catch of the 500 meme coins that are out there? It's like it's nobody knows, and there's no way of measuring. So I mean,
that's a really good point. I mean, Pepe's at like an $800 million market cap. Meanwhile, something that I personally like Time, the Internet Money wallet, it's at a $3 million market cap. It should be the inverse. Something with utilities, but something with a meme. But like, so like the point.
There's an Elon Musk tweet. Is that efficient? Is that efficient? Do we know when he's going to tweet about
pumping the market?
What crypto? Like,
no one agrees with each other as to how to evaluate these things.
Nobody agrees with each other, but there's one thing that has been very solid, and that is the Bitcoin halving. So to just throw it out with the bathwater, throw the baby out with the bathwater, like it doesn't mean anything anymore, is, I think, retarded.
Yeah, that's my point of view. Folks,
I think I'd agree with you.
Like, sub, share the stream. Okay, so we've kind of touched on this one thing before on your stream, but you're on my stream, so I want to ask you now again, so my audience can hear. What's your take on these kind of, and we might have touched on this before, but fuck it. What's your take on these like non-RH things? Like, I want to hear, I want my audience to hear your point of view, because I think your point of view is different than mine.
My take is that basically when you go to if you're a foreigner and you go to a basketball game and you go to an NBA game and then you go to a supermarket. I mean, so at the NBA game or at the MLB game, you have professional players. At the supermarket, you have cashiers. So you might translate like they're each jobs, the same way some people are good at being cashiers and some people are good at being professional baseball players, anybody could be a cashier and anybody could be a professional baseball player. But if you understand baseball or basketball and you understand how it works, you know that when you go to the supermarket, people can be cashiers at will. But to make the National Basketball Association, to make Major League Baseball, to make the National Hockey League or the National Football League, you are one in over a million. I mean, there are so many ranks of people, of leagues, of people that, of different levels, and you have to surpass everyone. It's the cream of the crop, the cream of the crop. So I think the same thing is true in crypto. People see that, people that just come into the space that don't really know how it works, they go into Bitboy Crypto and they hear Sandbox did a 10,000x, and the people that got in early made 1,000x. So the people that got into Hex, it's like, but for each one that you hear about, there's hundreds that are scams, rugs, or just cannot maintain the staying power, cannot maintain the community, cannot do. They just can't make it. I mean, it's just impossible. It's very, very rare. I mean, it's very rare for a cryptocurrency to have staying power, and to make it. So, and it's very common for them to be just rug pulls. So the point is that Hex has staying power. I believe it does. The community being this strong in the barest of the bears, and the failure of middlemen and institutions to provide yield, gives way for Hex to be extremely successful. We know, Richard Hart streams. Richard Hart is one of the most charismatic people and someone who has great leadership qualities. Like that is part of what makes the crypto successful. It's like that could be like the only thing needed. Cardano, the only thing they have going is Charles Hoskinson. So I'd argue Richard Hart is at a higher level of charisma and intelligence than Charles Hoskinson, and his L1 has more activity, better community, and solves things that need to be solved, like yield, trustless yield, and the Ethereum gas fees. So there's a very strong case to be made, and there's he's implied that he's not in it for the money, he's in it for the glory. His track record, proves that. He's done 10,000 X's. He's barely cashed out on the sacrifice money. I mean, barely any of it has been taken out. He's a very wealthy man. I mean, his products have done exceptionally well. This is a place of trust and integrity and likely success. There are people that are coming out there that have huge economic incentive to create projects that are building on PulseChain. They are unproven. Their integrity varies. Their motives are opaque. Like, we just don't know. Many of them, we don't even know who they are. Like, they can come in one project, rug it, and then go to the next one because they just change their avatar. Like, they go to the next community, they do the same thing. And they do that. It happens all the time. So what I'm saying is that are there projects on PulseChain that have good founders that are doxxed and that really want to do what's best? Yes. I mean, yes. Are there scammers that we think now are good people that want to do what's best, but really they're scammers, and we're only going to know once it's too late? Yes. I mean, and it's going to be very frequent, and it may or may not be like proven, but like the project will rug. So I'm saying like there's going to be that, and then even if like it has everything that, you know, it really wants to do something good and whatever, like it's a really well-intentioned founder, doesn't even like take profits, like staying power, you know, maintaining people's attention is so rare. I mean, that's why we're in the freaking NBA. You know, Richard Hart is an NBA player, dude. Like, you know, finding someone who's 6'11", that's mobile and agile, you know, and coordinated, like it's extremely rare. And like the people that can do it at the highest level are very successful, but most people can't do it. So most of these people are not going to be able to do it. Just look at the snapshot of CoinMarketCap in 2018, 2016. None of these cryptos made it. There's like 5 of them or like 10 of them that made it. So the same logic will translate to the projects building on PulseChain. So what I'm saying is if you're coming in your first cycle and you're trying to make life-changing wealth, to dilute your economic energy across, you know, unproved, like the Wild West, for me to tell people to do that when there's that other option, I don't see the reason for me to do that. And also, like, it's not good for the price performance of Hex. Like, if everyone's going everywhere, I mean, that's just mathematical. So I think Hex will do extremely well. I think it has staying power. I think it's early. I think they solve the biggest issues in crypto. The biggest issues in crypto were the Ethereum gas fees and the yield, you know, like Celsius, BlockFi, Nexo. Like, it solves it. It solves it very well. Proven founder. It's like, for me to, like, at this stage, to tell people to go off the reservation and just like go into the Wild West, it doesn't make any sense for me to do that. And I understand that I'm sure some of these, very few of them, will be successful. And I understand if you're a big whale, it's like sort of like liquidity providing. Like, some people are big, they are OGs. They got very successful in Hex, and they have money they can just throw away. That, you know, if it does 100x, like they could just throw 10 Gs or 50 Gs at these random projects, and if they lose, it doesn't matter. They have like 10,000 T-shares or whatever. So, like, I mean, I understand that also, but I think building on PulseChain is the best way as a founder to make money, but it's certainly the best way for your community to lose money, regardless of your intentions. I think that's really the overall thing. It's like, what do you think? I don't know. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
No, I think you do a very good job of highlighting the massive, unnecessary risk premium you take when venturing outside Richard Hart things. So even though I disagree with you, I think this is a tremendous, well, disagree on the edges, I think. I see tremendous value in what you're saying, especially now where we're in the midst of a bear market. I mean, Pulse Hex is still well below the average day one sack rate. Hex is wild, you know, it's still at a great valuation. Same thing with PulseChain. So in this kind of circumstance where you have extremely high quality options with extreme high potential upside that are very solid, relatively more well proven, relatively quote unquote safer. I mean, you could parse that out, we can get into debate, but relatively speaking, I think it's generally speaking not unreasonable to say that these things are more well proven, more fleshed out. And pairing that with the understanding that there's a massive risk premium with a lot of these new things launching on PulseChain. You know, one part of what makes this whole endeavor with Richard Hart tokens so, you know, acceptable to take the risk is because of the community. That's what so many people are lacking, man. Like, Phantom deployed like tens of millions of dollars in incentive for people to not just provide liquidity, but to build, and like people like take that, launch some bullshit run. All these coins do this. Like, it's very common for these things to spend tens of millions to incentivize adoption and never get it. Like, that's one huge thing that PulseChain, Hex, this whole community has, is that lowers the risk is the fucking community, man. Like, the Cardano, these other things have been out for years, been deploying tens of millions of dollars in incentive in an attempt to get a 1/100th the size and bullishness of the Hex community, right? And so that's one giant reason why PulseChain has all this potential, which is lacking in a lot of these new projects launching. All that is very true. But with that being said, man, I do think it's important to acknowledge that there is a giant variation in the quality of things launching on PulseChain. So far, from what I've seen, 99% of the things launching on PulseChain that isn't RH is pretty garbage. Like, in my opinion, there's like a half a dozen things out there that maybe you could stomach a higher risk and throw like a small percentage of your portfolio out there. Like, the only thing, and this is the greatest factor that kind of tips me over the edge, that makes me feel comfortable in allocating a couple percentage points here and there to a small handful of things, is the potential for earning a passive income in PulseChain. Because right now we don't have like a rocket pool fork where you could stake your PulseChain and earn.
We got Hex though. Oh, you're saying the PLS token?
Though. Yeah, I'm saying with like PulseChain specifically. Yeah, where things like Time, things like Power City, you'll be able to, with Time you don't stake, you just hold it. But with Power City, when the Watt token, you'll be able to stake it.
Yeah, but all that money that you put towards, let's say, the Time token or the
you can just put towards PulseChain. Yeah,
you'll likely have a better ROI than staking for
Pulse. Exactly. So that's my thing. It's a higher risk, but there's a non-zero chance that some of these could outperform maybe PulseChain, maybe PulseX, maybe Hex.
I doubt maybe. I mean, how many of them? What do you think? What do you think Pulse is going to do? Do you think Pulse is going to do over 100x?
I think 100x is from day one sack rate is not unreasonable.
How many coins did 100x last bull market?
Very few. I mean, we're talking like a meme coin or two.
And furthermore, so like those are ones that made it on their own. Like these ones are sort of making it. They're a community within a community. Like it's.
So here's the thing for me.
I don't think so.
Yeah, and that's fine. But for like,
what I'm saying is, let me just say, I'm sorry, but I'm not a hater. Like I understand it's part of the game, and some of these people are becoming millionaires overnight. The BankX guy is like, he's a millionaire. Like
but fuck the founders. I'm talking about the buyers.
So that there's a huge opportunity for that, but and some of them are really just trying to do well and feel like they're building on. But like some of them will be maybe successful, and I'll salute them. Like I'm not a hater, but like I understand like they have the right to do it, but like as someone who's looking out for my audience, I'm not gonna put it in front of them. Like, why would I expose them to that? Or why would I? Because like, there's every reason to believe it's gonna do garbage. And like each individual project thinks all the other ones are gonna do badly, and there's reason for them to think that.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you want to pick a few that you really believe in, based on like, I respect
because I think you got to take it one by one. I don't think you could lump all these like all together. I think you really got to take it case by case, in my opinion. And also for me, number one, I love like fleshing out differences of opinion because I know you have a different take than me, and I actually enjoy like hearing your perspective because for me too, man, like I want to hear the counterpoint so I can understand whether or not maybe I'm missing something, maybe I'm failing to consider something that I ought to consider. So that's why like I really appreciate you hearing me out on this specifically. And again, it's 100% higher risk. I only allocate very small portions of my portfolio, but like there are some things to like. And I do think for myself, if PulseChain is going to be successful, I think there are going to be some things on it that perform comparably. And I think there's a non-zero chance that one or two of these things might even outperform it. It's a very, very small chance, super high risk, but it's a non-zero chance.
But it's statistically like pretty much
very improbable
to pick the one. So even if there is one, like it's these things, the success is so random. It's like no one ever picks picks like the new ones until, whatever. The point is that it's crazy high risk, and we're in cycle 2 and cycle 1 of these coins for Richard Hart that are likely going to do hundreds and good chance over 1,000x. I think there's a good chance. This is crypto, you know what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is that I understand there will come a time where you're not going to be able to buy PLS and just get rich in a couple of years. And the same thing for Hex. I mean, you can maybe, because of the yield, have a 10-year plan, a 15-year plan to become a millionaire. In 10 years from now, the people that come in will be able to achieve financial freedom if they're willing to stake for 15 years or 10 years. But the idea that you're going to get in and just get a 100x, I mean, it's not going to happen. There's diminishing returns. These things get heavy. So yes, you look at Ethereum's first cycle. Ethereum outperformed everything. Ethereum in its second cycle. Are we in the third cycle? This last one, was it the third? Or I think it was the third.
I think so. Yes.
The point is, if you wanted to get mad gains, you had to delve. You could have some Ethereum as a safe bet, like people that hold Bitcoin now. But like you had to go into the projects building on Ethereum, and you had to take risks. So yes, I'm not an idiot. I'm not a Richard Hart.
No, but you're pointing out the risk.
I'm saying like there will come a point where you're going to have to look at the projects building on PulseChain, to get those mad gains. And that may be in 2 cycles or 1 cycle. But right now is not the time. That's what I think.
I appreciate your perspective. Yeah.
And we want the community. I think it's best also that, the community stays as a fragment. Yeah. I think the best thing for PulseChain is that we all, put all our effort into PulseChain and Hex. And I think the best thing for the people within the community is they put it all into PulseChain, because PulseChain and Hex are probably going to do the best. So. Okay, I don't even like that there's 3. That's already a lot, but like more than 3. It's like PulseX is already pushing it. It's like Hex, PulseChain, and PulseX. Like it's not as simple as it used to be just buy and stake Hex, or Hex and PulseChain even in either one. It's already pushing it PulseX, but it's Richard Hart's coin, man. So I'll go all 3, but like, and they're going like this, and then there's Hedron, Icosa, and Wad, and this, and Texan, and Incentive, and
then we're gonna have a coin too, man.
And Fiat has 3 of their own. It's Fiat, Fux, and Famous, and it's like, come on, dude. Like we can't do this to people. Like, stay here. That's what I'm saying. And
sure.
And what 9-inch and poor pleb, like he makes 2. It's like this guy's making a ton of money, and whatever. That is what it is. Hopefully he'll deliver. If he delivers, God bless him. But I'm not going there, man. I'm not legitimizing these things. I think it's very rare and very likely, just statistically, that they're gonna fail.
And just to add another point, I think kind of adding to your perspective. I mean, I've been waving this thing around throughout the stream. I don't know if you notice or how many of you guys know what this is, but this is actually an antenna from a helium miner. And last cycle, helium was like one of the biggest up and coming things. Yeah. People thought it was going to be around a long time. The helium network's pretty much dead. They tried to do a move for 5G, tried launching on Solana. It's a fucking mess. This thing was fucking pretty useless. I ended up spending quite a bit of money doing helium shit. it wouldn't have been fucking.
No, dude, pull up the 2016 coin market cap list. This is what B-Roots did. It's like,
where do you find the 2016?
Just search coin market cap snapshot, like 2016. Look at all the coins and see which ones are still there. And it's like the same thing that happened then is going to happen now with the coins that we all see. So listen, there are some people like whatever that are starting their own coins, and a few of them are going to be able to deliver, and they each think that they are, and all the power to them. But yeah, I'm not betting on them.
I got you. Okay. What about this though? Because I think we maybe might disagree on this. You've been kind of hinting at it. PulseX and single side staking. Do you think single side staking is important? Is it beneficial for PulseX? Is it irrelevant? What's your take on the single side staking?
The single-sided staking. So the single-sided staking, I actually my take was that it's probably Richard Hart said like it's stupid, and this guy's a
But he's also
well-thought-out
flip
guy.
flopping on it.
No, that time that he said, he was right, and there's a lot of things that I don't like about it. One is that it legitimizes all these other coins, that are gonna probably maybe rug or just suck. So like now they get marketing.
But doesn't that argument apply to the launching of PulseChain?
No, it doesn't. This is different. It's different. It's not the same. I mean, you
Richard's
want me to explain this?
He's tweeting about Pepe meme coins. Couldn't you argue
different? It's different. No. Because Pepe's already an established community. It's not the PulseChain community going into Pepe. It's more onboarding the already established community here. It's coming here, not going there. So it's different, in my opinion. But what was I saying?
Yeah, you were saying how you don't like single-sided staking.
Yeah, so
it's giving props to shitcoins.
Yeah, that, and you might say, oh yeah, but everyone knows to stump it. But you see what's happening with INC. People are all into that for the same reason. So it's giving legitimacy to shitcoin. It's diluting the buy pressure. It's also of course, because people are going to buy the single-sided staking coins that are being legitimized. Meaning people are going to start buying them the same way people are buying INC.
But people would do that regardless. I don't see how the single-sided staking adds more buy pressure. I see it adding more sell pressure.
It's different. When it's something that you could stake your PulseX for on app.pulsex.com, it gives a lot of legitimacy to these coins that otherwise it wouldn't be.
Legitimacy, sure. But why do people stake to earn a yield? What do people do with yield? We've seen with the Center token, what they do with yield is sell it.
I know,
what did they sell it for? They sell it for PulseX, PulseChain, Hex, which is what I would.
But there are a lot of people buying the incentive token. That shouldn't be, but a lot of people are buying it.
Yeah, but I would argue that more people are selling it than buying.
I know, but why have people buy it at all? Fuck that. Why do we want people buying it?
But they would be buying it regardless. I suppose your argument is that the legitimizing adds unnecessary buying towards
exactly. And I'm saying if INC was something that was rewarded on a different DEX, it would not have the same legitimacy that it's on the PulseX platform. It was created by Richard Hart.
Sure, but I would argue that the sell pressure outweighs the legitimization.
Yeah, so it's gonna it's gonna be a shitty investment, but it's gonna take away buy pressure and attention from PLS.
Do you think? Okay, so
now it's not just incentive. Now we're bringing in the whole entire. We're bringing in the entire scam, whatever industrial complex. Just come here, reward PulseX stakers, give legitimacy. It's not good. It's not good, and it's furthermore, it takes away from the product market fit of the Hex, which is the yield token. So I said, but at the same time, it's so all those things aren't good, and it's probably why Richard didn't want it. But at the same time, he did say that there would be single-sided staking. I mean, there was this understanding when people sacrifice that they're going to be able to lock up their PulseX, not really lock it up, but lock it up and earn some inflationary token. So I think a good compromise is low interest INC.
Yeah, I would agree. I personally think that any kind of yield adds to the value proposition, adds to the bullish narrative of PulseX. I mean, I can't believe I'm having to explain to the Hex community why yield matters. But look, from my perspective, if we look at what's been happening on the majority with incentive token, what's mostly happening is people are selling incentive token and buying PulseChain, buying PulseX, buying Hex. I know that because that's what I'm doing, and I know that a lot of shit ton of other people are doing it, and that would be the exact same thing I would do with PulseX. I would sell on a fucking daily or whatever all that shit token and constantly buying Hex, constantly swap. It almost seems to me like a way of legitimate wash trading. It's almost like you're creating this new mechanism for constant extra buy pressure towards the main things. Because you're right, how promoting and having that shit token logo is going to add legitimization 100%. I think you're right about that. But I think it's an open question whether that legitimization outweighs the behavior of how PulseX stakers are going to act. My intuition, which I could be wrong about, leads me to think that based off what I did with PancakeSwap, based off what I'm doing with Incentive Token, that you sell it for the thing you like more. I mean, this is a similar thing with Hadron and Icosa. I mean, all these, there's a bunch of these Hex OGs who are whales and have tens of millions, hundreds of millions of Hex. What did they do with their fucking Hadron and Icosa? They sold that shit for Hex. They sold that shit for PulseChain, for PulseX. And so I think there's a couple real world examples that we could point to where, hey, people are selling these tokens for the fucking trifecta, the holy trinity. And I think adding an additional source for buy pressure to these things, adding a big reason to buy and hold PulseX, is, I think, an overall net benefit. But again, that is my intuition. I could, at the end of the day, ultimately be wrong about how the game theory plays out.
Yeah, but I mean, how many people? It's just illegitimate. It's just, there are just going to be idiots that just come in and buy these free tokens, and they're going to get hurt. So I mean,
yeah, but like, how does? Yeah,
you see, everyone's buying Hedron, and like, I hate to say this, but like, it's that, dude. There are these OGs are minting billions of that, and they're just
and they're constantly dumping it.
It's like anybody who thinks that it has a shot of outperforming Hex, I think, is delusional. I mean, yeah, there's, I mean, and if it does, you got lucky. You weren't a smart investor, and that kind of thinking is what's going to get you wrecked in the future on something else, because, you know, whatever. I mean, that train of thought is not conducive for good investment decisions. Point is like, it's like it's like you see everyone wants to buy the Hedron now, and everyone wants to buy the ink, and everyone wants to buy like these things. Like the same thing will hold with the reward tokens for the single-sided staking, and it's just, we don't need those things. But I think ink, give us some ink.
But hold on, but it's my view that I highly doubt that the negative outweighs the benefit, due to the example of Incentive Token, where Incentive Token is essentially you know, a placeholder for whatever random shitcoin that might launch with single side staking. Like, if we look at Incentive Token, we ask ourselves, okay, people are earning this random thing, and, you know, it's an open question of how the game theory will play out. Are more people going to buy it or sell it? What we're seeing play out in real time is that more people are selling it for the thing they like more than are buying, and we see that reflected in the chart.
But at least
it seems to me like PulseX single side staking could be a similar thing.
Sorry.
Uh-oh. Did we FUD FURU?
No.
He's running away. He can't deal with you.
No. The difference is with Incentive Token, at least we know that the people that are buying it, they're not going to get rugged by Richard Hart. I mean, or we strongly believe that. We don't know anything for certain. But like the single-sided staking reward tokens, people are going to be aping into it like the same way that people are aping into INC. The only difference is good chance that the people that are creating these tokens are just going to pull the rug, like happens so many times in crypto. So just having those on PulseX, we don't have to even get into the tokenomics things. It sort of delegitimizes the high integrity that we have in this space, and I don't think that's a good idea. I think especially when we could just give them ink.
Yeah. But, and here's another gripe I have with this, man, is like, none of us were having this conversation during the sacrifice phase. During the sacrifice phase, it was perhaps on purpose ambiguous as to like Richard was fucking fine with people thinking we're gonna have this back then. Now all of a sudden that it's launched, now it's the time to have these fucking debates.
I think it's because the sacrifice phase, like everyone was like so bullish that like no one even cares. They're all just like making money and so rich. Like now the fact that the price is down just exacerbates the situation. And like everyone's on edge, and I mean that's just how it works. So I think ultimately the price is going to come back, and we'll all be happy except for the people buying the single-sided staking reward tokens. I think compare the single-sided staking rewards token to just earning ink. Like why wouldn't you wouldn't? Ink is the better option. Ink reward, low yield, like so it doesn't distract from Hex. That's great. You'll roll your ink instead of. Would you rather earn ink or a potential rug?
It depends on the yield. Because for myself, I would constantly be selling whatever the fucking token is. So
Okay, so so then you're saying, but the yield is also going to depend on the price of the coin.
Not necessarily. Okay, not necessarily. And here's another thing too. There's so many different ways in which you could implement single side staking. There's so like when I think of single side staking, you might be thinking about something else. Someone in the audience might be thinking about something else. So that's like something else to consider here, which is single side staking could be just incentive token. Single side staking could be like maybe a handful of trusted quote unquote things launching on PulseChain. Like it could be many different things. And so I think the way it's implemented could perhaps change the whole fucking game theory of the whole situation. We ultimately don't know. We're kind of speculating as to how it might be.
If the yield is too high, though, isn't that going to disincentivize buying and staking Hex? I wouldn't want that. But
it's a double-sided sword because the higher the incentive is, the more I'm going to sell it and buy Hex. Because like you got to think about it, because it's a two-sided thing. You got to think about what's going to be the behavior of these PulseX holders. And I can't speak to all of them, but I can sure shit speak to what's likely to be done with a lot of the large whales. A lot of the large whales in PulseX fucking love their Hex, and they're selling their Hadron, they're selling their incentive to buy Hex. And I know sure shit that's exactly what I'm going to be fucking doing. So you're right. Like if we have some 120% interest on PulseX, maybe not as many people buy Hex, but I know a lot of I know what I'm going to be doing is selling that to buy Hex. So it's an open question whether
but then you're bringing like 10 new tokens, and it just like takes away the tension. There's this new thing and that new thing, and like it just turns into.
Why is this being thought about now? That's my thing. Like
I honestly.
Why don't we have these discussions during the fucking sacrifice phase? Like it's kind of convenient how Richard left all this ambiguous.
Yeah, no, he messed up. That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying they have to do. It's they don't. We'd have no expectations, but I think it would be probably the best compromise to do like ink rewards. But there was a mess up in the sense that people had an expectation of single-sided staking. So he made that error, and I think it seems like he made that error, and the best way to fix it is to just give him ink.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. And here's another thing too, which a lot of people bring up that point, which is, hey man, we didn't have expectations, so you shouldn't even like be worried about this at all. Yeah. My whole thing is like, okay, that no expectation things works to an extent. Like if Richard Art says he's going to fork Ethereum and delivers a BitConnect fork, you can't get away with that by saying no expectations. Like there's a reasonable spectrum of design expectations. Like do you think that if Richard Art delivered a BitConnect fork, we would all just be like, oh guys, fucking he said no expectations, so we just got to be cool with this? No, I think there's like a reasonable spectrum of not profit from the work of others. That's not what I'm fucking saying, SEC. What I'm saying is like there's a reasonable spectrum of design expectations, and I think that taking lies within that fucking.
I agree with that, and I think Richard agrees with that, and I think that's why he tweeted it. No, he backpedaled, but then he came back. Yeah. He banned you, and then he came back on it, and then he restated his desire to implement single-sided staking soon. So I think he agrees with you, even though he blocked you.
So from your perspective, if you had to order your bullishness on the Holy Trinity, or we'll consider the ugly stepchild, the adopted kid, I guess, how would you do it? Hex, PulseChain, PulseX, Inc? Like how would you do it?
I think Ink is the least, and then honestly, it's like Hex and Pulse for 1 and 2, and PulseX 3. But I have no idea. Don't take that to the bank at all. I mean, it could be either one, and I hold all 3. But again, the thing about Hex is the T shares and on long time horizons, since you have the T shares and the RO, like the additional, it's an additional, let's say 30% gains on your gains. And then that compounds. So like after a couple of years, you're looking at 60, 70, you have some OGs are getting over 100% on their principal. So it's going to be very hard it's going to be very hard. Even if PulseChain does better in the short term, it's going to be very hard for it to outperform the ROI of your stakes on a long time horizon. It's pretty much impossible.
Interesting. That's a hot take.
Yeah, no. So that's what I'm saying. And then on top of that, it saves you from yourself, right? Because of the selling early, selling late, you're forcing yourself to long time horizon. And it still might even do better than this cycle, given the new information and the recent performance. So I think Hex has to be my number one in terms of allocation. It might not do the best, but it actually might. But it's certainly my number one. 2 is probably Pulse. It's going to be the first to get exchange listings, because you can't do anything. You can't buy Pulse. You need Pulse in order to buy PulseX or in order to stake or buy Hex. So it's going to be the first to get exchange listings. It solves probably the single most prominent issue as far as crypto with Ethereum gas fees. I mean, it's got to burn. So, yeah. And then PulseX is probably 3. And people say PulseX maybe 2 because PulseX has the buy and burn. Maybe. I mean, maybe. But I would say Hex is 1, PLS 2, PLSX 3.
Right on. Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious, man. For me, I think it's a tie between PulseChain and Hex, perhaps being number 1. Because the thing is, man, I don't think people feel it, but come the bull market, people are going to feel those fees and they're going to fucking run towards anything that's usable.
Yeah, no, dude, PulseChain for mad gains, like, dude, such a layup. It's like it's a little disgusting. It's a little disgusting. It's like freaking, and then like that's the problem. Is like it's such a layup, and then like people are telling me, not you, but like people are saying like you need to look at the project's building. It's like fuck that, dude. Fuck that, dude. This thing is like way too easy.
Sure,
the way I'm seeing it. So like I think I'll do best as an influencer if my audience does best.
Sticks to the sure thing.
I think that's the way to do best. I think if I put them at the behest of every project building on that, a lot of them are going to fail and a lot of them are going to underperform. The trifecta. So I think this is like it's really a little bit too easy. So yeah.
I don't think that's unreasonable at all. I think even though we have a maybe slightly different perspective, I think you're being very reasonable. We have a low risk, high reward thing staring us right in the face. To focus on that, I can't disagree with you at all. It's an extremely sensible position. Now I see a cool comment that I want to kind of bring up here before we continue. CI saying, "Rewind gang, damn, so glad you guys got the ancient spirit of true hex against not only conservative eHex, also progressive and supporting what makes sense. PHex, RH would truly be proud of you guys." Well, I really appreciate that sentiment for sure, man. Look, we're running up against 2 hours. There's maybe a handful of things left that I had in mind here. Now, short term, I want to kind of pick your brain on this. What's going on short term?
Tell everyone to hit the like button and subscribe first.
Oh my God, yes. So everyone, like and subscribe. 58 of us watching. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Also, I can't believe I've forgotten to mention this at this point, but go subscribe to FURU Finance. Guys, he's been killing it. He's been one of the most active people out there, bringing you guys tons and tons of great PulseChain content, while a lot of people have been taking a hiatus, including myself, taking it kind of easy. FURU's been out there in the trenches fighting day after day. So, guys, go support FURU. I have your links down in the description below. So if I'll put it in the comments, but it's definitely, guys, down in the description below. You recently hit, what was it? You said you were around 5K last I checked.
So there was a very big setback we had with the eHex saga, but thankfully I did very well for my followers, and I'm very proud of it. The people that didn't buy eHex did extremely well. We're at over 2-to-1, and I think it's going to continue to be like that. But unfortunately, a lot of people in the community disagreed with me very vehemently. So and thanks for sharing that. And they told everyone to unfollow me, and they counted me out, and I lost a lot of followers. But we're back at all-time highs, and we're continuing to succeed. I want to express my appreciation for Dollar Cost Crypto, by the way, because I was getting about like I could barely get back to all-time highs. You know, I was like barely there, but like finally, like we stopped the bleeding as far as my subscribers, and we were back at all-time highs. But it used to be, it was a given I'd get 20, 30 subs in a day. And I mean, those days are gone. Those days were gone. And dollar cost coming on my stream was huge. For like, I got like 40 subscribers just on that stream. I think it also showed, it humanized me because, and we don't agree completely on everything, but we're pretty close on agreement. But it also humanized me because a lot of people never saw my stream. They just assumed I said eHex has to go to 0, which wasn't even true. But like him coming on and his fans seeing who I am, I think it showed that I'm not the monster that everyone thought I am. And it was a freaking awesome stream also. I mean, that guy's one of the biggest names in this space, one of, if not the biggest name in this space with 20K subs, but also an up and coming in the red pill space.
Yeah.
And he's been having success there. So I mean, he's an incredible talent, obviously, and it really made for incredible show. And he just like willingly came on, and I'm greatly appreciative to Dollar Cost Crypto. I mean, thank you, man. Thank you. I'm sure you guys all know of him, so I don't even have to say to like or subscribe, but he really helped. He really helped get out of this.
That's awesome, dude. Shout out to him, because I think there's a lot of people who like saw that you were like maybe having like a disagreement with like the whole EXPX thing and shun you, but at the end of the day, you were protecting your audience, and you were goddamn right. Like the people who like you were pointing out the risk with eHex when no one else would. You ended up being right, and for these OGs to attempt to slander you for having pointed out the risk, and it ended up being correct about the risk, for having trying to look out for your audience and ended up being correct about that, man. Like, you guys definitely need to go support FURU, because he's out here sticking his neck out, looking out for his community when others refuse to. And the fact that, like you just mentioned, Dollar Cost Crypto kind of acknowledged that, was willing to have a conversation, shout you out. I think that also kind of speaks volume to him, speaks volumes about what he's about as well. So it's kind of great to see, man. So yeah, shout out to Dollar Cost Crypto, and shout out to you as well.
Yeah, thanks, man. And the OGs, they get a bad rep because they actually, it was a very prominent position and it was something held in high regard, but lately it's been getting a little bit of slander. But let me just say, like, so many of them have been really, really good to me, and have defended me and came on my show. And let me just say some of them. There was Dollar Cost, obviously. Freddie Quotes came in. He came on, I think, the day before. Dixon Piper, I hope he's coming on next week. I mean, he's incredible. Motley Investor is incredible. DJ Cryptomatic. DJ Cryptomatic is incredible. I mean, he's a little bit more favorable towards EX than me, but that's fine. He came on my stream. That meant a lot. Crypto Vince. Honestly, there's a lot of, it might even say most are just good people, and they stuck their neck out for me. Even during those times. So there, it gets a bad rep, but I mean, they're incredible, and there's something special that they were able to I guess catch this early, and they sort of brought this ecosystem to what it is today. Matty Allen also, he invited me to speak by the I spoke last year's Hex conference and in this year's PulseCon. He invited me to speak. So a lot of OGs there that I hope I'm sure I left some out, but I mean a lot of OGs that have been really, really good.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, and that's a good point as well, which is, as much as we have criticized certain people in the past, I think it's frankly a loud minority. I think most of the people in the space, man, are decent people, like, who wanna support.
Brizology. I'm sorry, Brizology.
Brizology.
You saw my dude. He was probably one of the biggest. Like, he not only like agreed with me in private, like he agreed with me in public, and like he came on the that was like at the worst of the worst. Like, he really was there. So big shout out to him. Sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Unfortunately, he's blocked me. But I don't. Yeah, were you? Yeah.
Did he really?
Oh yeah, he blocked me. He was like attacking me personally, calling me names. And
Was it over the INC?
yeah, well, no, it was because of the Pulse 6 single side staking. And I think it's
Okay,
tragic too.
hopefully we could work that out.
Well, I don't know, man. He commented on my video and he said he didn't even watch the video. He just like saw the title or something and started like attacking me personally, which is typically when you disagree with someone, you might want to hear what they're saying before you actually disagree with them. But I suppose it's kind of like I don't know. maybe
Let's see.
a new thing.
I can attest he's going through a lot now, and there could be a misunderstanding, and
I think he's wildly
out.
misunderstanding me, and I hope he actually sees and hears what I actually said.
But he's going through a lot, and trust me, he's going through a lot too. Like,
okay, sure. Well, yeah. Well,
we'll work it out. We're gonna hopefully work it out. But he's a very, very good person.
Okay. Yeah, and hey man, I hope we can all sing fucking Kumbaya and fucking
we're gonna be good.
Yeah, one day.
We're gonna be good.
Yeah. Look, man, is there anything we haven't touched on that might be worth touching on?
I don't know. Your show, man.
Well, I mean, one thing that might come to mind is like the whole XRP situation. That was some big news.
Yeah.
And I don't think we have. I don't think we've commented on that.
Nice Ripple exit liquidity opportunity.
yeah. It looks like it was a pump, and then we might get a dump. We might get some exchange listings again, and it might pump. But what do you think is the impact of this ruling? I think it's frankly a very big deal. But what's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean it's like the XRP token. If that's not a security, it's going to be hard to argue that Hex or Pulse X are securities, because like XRP, they legitimately are like, Ripple's a huge company, and they literally just sell that to token holders to fund the whole it sort of functions like equity in a way, and like it's got a company. I mean, it's got a payroll, it's got buildings, it's got operations, it's got conferences, whatever, the whole thing, CEOs, like, I mean, and how do they fund it? I mean, some of it is, stocks, right? Whatever, but like probably very significant percentage, if not the majority of it is sale of the XRP token to retail, sort of like how Apple functions. So if that's not a security, Hex that doesn't have any of those things, and is owned by I mean, how much more so that it's not a security. So it sets precedence for all the coins that we were worried that were securities, whatever, that we hold. I think we're in the clear, and I think that's really good for exchange listings. It's really good for the reputation of the coin. When you have that like whole security possibility, it's kind of like a dark cloud over the coin. A lot of people wanted to stay away from XRP because of the whole SEC thing. But I think this really gives a lot of clarity and assurance that where we are, there isn't going to be that issue, because XRP is like a huge precedence.
Yeah. And like not just that, man, but like this whole, like you mentioned how it acts like a cloud over not just XRP, but the space as a whole. Like so many delistings, innovations running away from the United States. Also, we had the SEC reaching out to like people in the Hex community. Like I managed to actually catch a bit of your stream with Freddie, and he was bringing this up and how people like were rightfully scared. People step back from promoting, but I think this ruling potentially like could change things, and I'm curious if this perhaps changes anything with Richard Hart. I'm curious now if Richard feels more comfortable now that this ruling's out. It's much more difficult to call this shit a security now. So I'm wondering if this kind of gives Richard some encouragement to maybe be a bit more public now. That's what I'm excited about.
I hope so. I think there's a very good chance, but I don't know. We have no expectations, right? So I definitely think it definitely helps. It could be he just wants better price performance, or he wants to, let's say, shake out the weak hands people say is a possibility. Could be he's just waiting maybe for more clarity, but this is pretty good. It's definitely a step in the right direction. His streaming days are not over. I strongly believe he will stream again, and he will do it a lot. But for whatever reason, he's not doing it now. But I think it's definitely gonna help. It's definitely gonna help bring that moment forward. I mean, it could be he'll stream like today or like next week. I don't know exactly when he's gonna do it, but it's definitely gonna help bring that to fruition, I guess.
Yeah, and regardless of whether or not he streams soon or not, I frankly don't think he will. Because for me, I think Richard needs to see like more the minimum viable product with PulseChain, PulseX. Like there's still some things to work on with PulseX. Like there's still like routing things. They can't even display the fees correctly. There's still single set staking things. I'm sure there's still bridge things. I'm sure there's still PulseChain things. So maybe what it takes is a bit of just finalizing that stuff a bit more. Maybe getting go.hex.com to actually work on PulseChain.
No, it works. It works.
Does it work now?
Yeah, it's up. It's up.
Oh, because I heard people were still having some problems.
No, but, it's working. It's up. They had the beta, and now they have go.hex.com. It's up.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. That's awesome, man.
It's working well, but it is up.
Okay, all right. Another thing. Okay, this is what I kind of like to ask this of everyone, because everyone has kind of different take on this, and I think it's interesting. If you had to give like a piece of wisdom to like someone relatively new entering the space, just some kind of North Star to navigate these murky waters, what would you tell someone getting into crypto that they need to kind of keep in mind?
Tell them to subscribe to the Brandon B channel and listen to him. Listen to his every word.
Yes, because it's gospel. I'm never wrong, and
That's
everything
right.
I say is guaranteed.
And it is complete financial advice.
No,
kidding.
FURU gives financial advice.
No,
I'm kidding.
it's not financial.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah.
I mean, it's a learning curve, and hopefully we could help him out. It's not like anything else. Like you want to get into investing, you can go to the library, dude. There's like books and books and books, and Warren Buffett has a book, and this has a book. Like this is like a completely new thing, and it is really hard. I think the Richard Hart streams are huge. I think you gotta learn. You gotta get in the FURU Finance Patreon and look at all the courses and weekly meetings, and you'll be good. But it's true, but it'll help. But,
I know courses help me out, man. I don't know about you, but like part of my confidence is, when I was first getting in, I got courses. I bought courses. I got into paid groups and stuff, and
it accelerates. It accelerates the learning process. Great.
Yeah. And there's, I think, variety in the quality of groups for sure. But if you can find a worthwhile one, it could definitely be worthwhile for sure. Yeah. Any final thoughts, man? Anything you want to let people know that we haven't touched on yet as we perhaps start to wrap up, maybe?
I think that everyone should hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if they haven't already, and share it all over social media. I think people are starting to say bull market. I don't think so. I think we have another 6 months. We need to get to January, and then we could start, getting super bullish. And I will maintain that. I will maintain that sentiment. I think, what does that mean? That means that you should be DCAing throughout this next couple of months. You should be accumulating. You shouldn't be waiting for me to tell you bull market, and now you can only fill up with, you're going to be buying dollars for what now are pennies. You'll have, maybe only 10% of the holdings that you could accumulate over these next 6 months. So this is the time of opportunity. If you look at everything, all the pieces are coming into place for crypto to come back. As far as, it used to be L after L after L, right? You had you had Celsius, you had Luna, you had inflation, high interest rates. It seemed like it was never gonna end. It was killing crypto. You just had the massive corrections, and you had FTX, and it was just then you had the SEC investigation to XRP, into Ripple, and into Coinbase and Binance, and all those things. And things are really starting to climax. Just look around you. First of all, we're up. Bitcoin is up like 40% on the year. Ethereum's up like 55% on the year. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, this is a pretty green year overall. Inflation is down, right? We're at 3% inflation already. 3% inflation. I mean, so interest rates are probably going to come down. Ethereum is still expensive. It's going to be more expensive. PulseChain is going to become more prominent, more protruding. It's going to be more significant in the space. It's only going to grow. Hex is only going to grow. These things are going to take off, in my opinion, and not financial advice. Then you have the 4-year cycle, like we said, the most efficient, metric in the inefficient markets of crypto. I mean, the halving is coming up. So all the pieces I see are sort of falling into place for massive returns and massive rewards to the people that jump in now. I remember they said in the crypto.com commercial with Matt Damon.
Yeah.
Matt Damon, fortune favors the brave.
Oh,
Fortune favors the bold. Like, were you that bold? Were you that bold dabbling in crypto when Matt Damon was involved? Tom Brady? I mean, you weren't. But now is when fortune favors the bold. I mean, it's these moments, especially in the darkest times, like after the PulseChain launch, throughout all the infighting and when Hex was going under a penny. But this is still the bold. We're still in that bold time frame, and this is where fortunes are made. I'm betting very heavily on it. I'm not just saying it. I mean, this is where my money's going. So I'm very excited about the future, and I think the opportunity is tremendous. But like, moreover, like, the opportunity where we are is tremendous, and I'm really looking forward to capitalizing.
Yeah, dude, that was extremely well said. I completely agree. Like, man, like you mentioned, Bitcoin having someone up, they're probably going to be cutting interest rates in the near, next year or so. We are in the bear market. Bear market's the time to accumulate. You want to buy dips, even in an uptrend, there's always dips. And man, I think it's going to be great to be able to look back in a year or two, the work we put in, the risk we took, both a financial, reputation, time-wise. And it's going to be nice to see it pay off, because I think there's a decent chance it will, man. I think we're the lucky few who found this opportunity when most were dismissing it, wrongly so. And like you mentioned, man, when those ETH gas fees start to get bad, and they will, people are going to start to realize, because right now when the ETH gas fees aren't that bad, people, they don't appreciate PulseChain. But people are going to appreciate this shit out of PulseChain. As soon as we start getting those $100, $300, $500, $1,000 swap transactions, send, unstake, stake fees, yeah, PulseChain is going to start to look real attractive. And do not underestimate the power of a euphoric market. So, man, now's the time. Like you mentioned, you kind of mentioned as a funny thing, but while it was funny, I think it's also true. Like and subscribe. My channel, FURU's channel, your channel's great. Like I mentioned, we have in the comments, we have in the description. So, folks, show support. FURU stuck his neck out there to protect his community, and he was right about it. And it's great to see you not only vindicate in that fashion, but I think more and more people are starting to notice it. More and more people will notice it as time goes on. So, man, I thought this was a great conversation. We did 2.5 hours, so I thank you a lot for your time, man. I thought this was a worthwhile conversation, not just me. People are saying rewatch this live stream. I definitely think this live stream is one of those that's worth a rewatch for sure. And I think that might be kind of a good place to wrap it up. What do you think?
I think it's great, and thanks for having me on, man. This was awesome.
Yeah, we got to do it again sometime in the future. Okie dokie, folks. This was a long one, a great one. Thank you all so much. We'll wrap it up here. And until next time, folks, take care.